Born with a worthless appraisal job, his life was nothing but hardship. Struggling to survive was tough enough, yet he was constantly belittled and treated cruelly by others. Facing death's doorstep, he decided to let go, to end it all. Just hours ago, he was with a Team Jolin, a mage, and Joy, a swordsman. Now, Joy was locked in battle with a giant sewer rat deep within the dungeon. Joy landed a fierce strike on the beast, but couldn't finish it off, so he shouted for Jolin to unleash magic quickly. Finally, Jolin cast a blazing fire spell that incinerated the rat. Right after the fight, Joy and Jolin showered each other with praise. Yet when speaking to him, the lowly appraiser, they dragged along their tone shifted into something cold and distant. Joy barked orders, demanding he work faster. Burdened by heavy gear and harsh insults, he stumbled and fell flat on his face. The mistreatment was clear, but he had no choice but to rise and obediently fulfill his role as a bottom-tier appraiser. In this world, everyone is born, granted a vocation by the goddess of Lightwile. The goddess of darkness bestows skills. Hone your skills, and your power grows. But your inherited job is fixed, passed down through your bloodline. Jobs are ranked: rare, advanced, and low-tier. Low-tier vocations are like discarded brass people stuck with them, often end up farming or doing petty trade. His parents once ran a small appraisal shop but passed away when he was young, leaving him to fend for himself. That's why he's the pack mule dragging gear for those two. Though he hated it deeply, he had no other choice. Using his appraisal skill on the fallen rat, he found it was a worthless common rat, but its teeth rated a D grade worth picking up. Struggling to pry open the rat's mouth, it resisted fiercely and took time. Jolin and Joy grew impatient, urging him to hurry. When he asked for help to open the rat's jaws, Joy exploded in anger, forbidding it and throwing stones at him, calling him useless. He burned with fury, but lacked the strength to fight back. Joy kicked him again until he begged for mercy. Exhausted from the beating, Joy lost interest in continuing. Left alone, he resumed prying open the rat's mouth. Nearby, Jolin mocked him as a filthy scavenger. Both relished bullying him, knowing he was powerless beyond this lowly task. No team ever needed an appraiser like him. If one wanted to know an item's value, they'd just visit the guild, equipped with magic appraisal tools, making low-rank appraisers like him obsolete. He heard their cruel words and knew they were true. His appraisal skill was nearly worthless, leaving him only to scavenge for miserable people like Jolin and Joy. After pocketing the rat's tooth, Joy reminded him the only reason they kept him was to do these dirty jobs. He was told to know his place, to master the art of being a scavenger. Life had dealt him a brutal hand, yet he had to survive in this harsh world, even if it meant enduring those two tormentors. As they moved deeper into the dungeon, Joy suddenly spotted the corpse of a hellhound lying in their path. Without a second thought, he assumed luck was on their side, loot without a fight, so he stepped forward. Joy advanced eagerly, eyes gleaming with greed, while the others watched silently. But beneath the surface, our appraiser's heart weighed heavy. In a world where power decides worth, he was nothing but a shadow, clinging to scraps while others soared. Yet, even in this darkness, a flicker of hope stirred. What comes next could change everything if he dares to rise beyond his fate. He was ordered to go retrieve it, but he still had some sense. He reasoned that if the hellhound died before they arrived, something truly powerful must have killed it. Besides, hellhounds rarely appeared in this part of the dungeon. Something was definitely off. Yet ignoring his protests, the man shouted at him to shut up and get to work. While he was stuck with the dirty task, Jolin and Joy chatted about having fun together once they returned to town. They even joked about making him watch their antics. As they moved on, they found another dead hellhound and ordered him to pick it up too. But this time, fear rooted him to the spot. According to the map Joy got from the guild, there was no path ahead. Going further meant trouble. Still, his warnings fell on deaf ears. The man strode into the corridor, telling him that if he was scared, he could just leave. But if he quit now, he wouldn't get paid, because he was breaking orders. He was trapped in one hand. He knew pressing forward was dangerous. On the other, he couldn't afford to lose his place in Joy's group. No one wanted someone useless like him with worthless appraisal skills. If kicked out, survival was impossible. So, reluctantly, he followed Joy, knowing full well it was a terrible choice. After a while, they came across countless hellhound corpses scattered on the ground. Joy saw this as a jackpot loot without a fight, but he remained uneasy because whatever killed all these hellhounds was probably still lurking nearby. Tired of his worrying, Joy snapped at him to shut up and work. Just then, he spotted something terrifying behind them, and trembled, pointing in that direction. Joy turned and saw dozens of glowing red eyes staring them down. A pack of hellhounds emerged from the shadows. It turned out the corpses were from these dogs tearing each other apart over territory. But now, with the entire pack united, the three of them stood no chance. He had no combat skills, and even if Joy and Jolin teamed up, taking down a single hellhound was tough let alone 7. Fighting was impossible. The only way to survive was to run. but outrunning a pack of wolf-like beasts? No chance. Then, a spark of cunning lit Joy's mind. He and Jolin didn't need to be faster than the dogs, just faster than him. So Joy ordered Jolin to cast paralysis on him. Jolin was initially confused but caught on, pointing her staff at him and unleashing the spell. He collapsed, helpless, unable to move. He couldn't believe these two were planning to abandon him to die. Joy lied, claiming the paralysis would wear off soon, and if he stayed quiet, he might escape the pack. Then Joy and Jolin deliberately made noise to lure the hellhounds toward him and fled. Left alone, the hellhounds lunged, biting and tearing at his limbs. Agony screamed through him, but that pain broke the paralysis spell's grip, and he regained control. Grabbing a nearby stone, he tried to fend them off, hurling his backpack to distract them. The pack didn't suffer damage, but the food inside bought him precious seconds. He dragged himself away, desperate to escape. But fate dealt another cruel blow. Joy and Jolin had blocked the exit with a rockfall. Trapped, time slipping away, he heard the hellhounds closing in. If he was going to die, he'd rather fall fighting than be devoured alive. For so long, he blamed his worthless appraisal job. But now, he realized he'd never truly pushed himself to overcome challenges. Yet, the realization came too late. A loud thud echoed as his body hit the ground. He died right there. But strangely, he landed against a tree. A beautiful girl appeared before him, approached his body, and kissed his forehead. Then his body stirred, and moments later, he woke up. Fully conscious, he found himself alive, all wounds healed. How was this possible? Raindrops fell from the tree above. He caught a few and used his appraisal, skill astonished to discover they were S-rank drops from the World Tree. Then he appraised the colossal tree itself and confirmed it was the legendary World Tree. Long ago, this tree created mana for humans to craft magic, but legend said it had withered and died ages ago. Still, scholars believed it survived somewhere. That's why expeditions sought it out. But no useful info ever emerged until now. He understood why no one found it. No one thought to look beneath the dungeon. Realizing the tree had revived him, he thanked it. Suddenly, he heard a girl's voice, but no one was around. Maybe it was his imagination. Relieved to be alive and safe with no monsters nearby, he pondered how to return to the surface. Joy and Jolin surely wouldn't send help, and there was no food here. Without getting out soon, starvation was certain. He headed toward the exit, but paused to thank the tree once more. This place wasn't on the guild's map, so he had no idea what awaited ahead. Enemies here would be stronger than the hellhound that nearly killed him, and though scared, he had no choice. Staying meant starvation, moving forward meant survival at any cost. He walked for a long time, no monsters in sight, a rare relief. Then suddenly, a cold wind brushed his face. In the next instant, his ear was severed, falling to the ground. Pain exploded as he screamed and tried to grab the detached ear, but at the same time, 2 fingers were cut off. The attacker was an S-rank goblin, far stronger than the B-rank hellhound. Panic gripped him, there was no chance to survive. The goblin attacked relentlessly, too fast to react, forcing him to dodge. But no useful information came to light about it. And now he understood why no one had ever found it, because who would think to search for it deep in the dungeon's depths? He realized the tree had revived him, and he silently thanked it. Just then he heard a girl's voice, but no one was around. Maybe it was just his imagination. He felt relieved to be alive, and this place seemed safe since no monsters lurked nearby. Still, he had to figure out how to get back to the surface. Joy and Jolin surely wouldn't call anyone to rescue him, and there was nothing to eat here. Starvation was a real threat if he didn't get home soon. He headed toward the exit, but before leaving, he thanked the tree once more. This place was clearly off the guild's map, so he had no idea what awaited him ahead. The enemies here would surely be stronger than the hellhound that nearly killed him, so fear gripped him, but he had no choice. If he stayed, death by hunger was certain. He vowed to do whatever it took to survive, no matter how tough the road ahead. Stepping out of the dungeon, he walked for quite a while, still no sign of monsters. Relief washed over him, no fights today. Suddenly, a cold breeze brushed his face, and in the next moment, his ear dropped to the ground. Pain exploded through him as he screamed, desperately grabbing the severed ear. At the same time, 2 of his fingers were sliced off. The culprit was an S-rank goblin, and panic surged through him. Even the hellhound was only B-rank, but this goblin was far stronger. He had no chance of survival. The goblin lunged, too fast for him to react, forcing him to dodge. Turning to flee, the goblin raised its scythe to pierce his heart but froze. Something far more terrifying had appeared. A colossal death bear tore the goblin apart. If the goblin was a nightmare, this bear was a living apocalypse. The bear's claws slashed across his face, destroying one eye. As he tried to escape, the bear grabbed him, squeezing until blood poured from his mouth. Just as the bear prepared to devour him, a mysterious woman appeared, decapitating the beast with a single strike. Once again, as he regained consciousness, he was amazed to find his wounds healed. Sitting up, His heart raced as before him stood a breathtakingly beautiful woman, stirring feelings he hadn't expected. Still struggling to swallow his surprise, another woman appeared behind him, commanding him to show proper gratitude and quickly drink the tea the girl had prepared. Confucius hadn't seen any tea. He soon realized Yuri was holding a cup brewed just for him. Hesitant about the mysterious tea, unsure if it might be drugged, he resisted. But Ursula pressed him firmly, leaving no choice. To his surprise, the tea was delicious, and he praised Yuri. The girl's joy was infectious, making Yuri's smile utterly adorable. Yet Ursula warned him sternly. If he harbored any ill intentions toward Yuri, there would be consequences. The warmth of that moment was tinged with caution, reminding him that even in beauty, shadows lurk. Yuri's gentle presence was a rare light in the darkness of this strange world, a fragile thread of hope he dared to hold on to. Ursula's fierce protection was a shield, a reminder that trust here was a precious, guarded treasure. He caught Ursula's meaning and quickly pushed those thoughts aside, asking if they were the ones who saved him from the deadly bear. Ursula replied coldly that she couldn't care less about a stinky guy like him, but Yuri begged her to save him, so she reluctantly stepped in. Grateful, he thanked Yuri for worrying about him. Yuri blushed from talking to a guy, and Ursula promptly kicked him in the face before stomping on him for daring to flirt with her daughter. He learned that Ursula was Yuri's mother, or more accurately, her guardian. Ursula had been here since Yuri first took root in this place. Yuri might look human, but she was actually the World Tree Spirit, one of 9 sacred trees existing in this world. Ursula's duty was to watch over and protect Yuri from all threats. He was stunned to find out Yuri was a World Tree Spirit, but it made sense. She was breathtakingly beautiful. The moment he said that, Yuri turned shy, and Ursula immediately kicked him again for daring to look at Yuri with lustful eyes. Defeated, he apologized quickly. Speaking of eyes, he suddenly realized he could still see clearly, even though one eye had been slashed by the death bear. Ursula explained that she had healed him with the tears of the World Tree, but even their miraculous power couldn't restore an eye crushed beyond repair. So Yuri generously offered a part of the World Tree to create a new eye for him. Once again, he felt deeply grateful, but started wondering why Yuri cared so much for him when they barely knew each other. Yuri said it was because he thanked her when he fell here. Few people ever fall here, and most who do die. Yuri saves them all, but no one ever thanks her. When they learn she's the World Tree, they greedily demand water or break off branches and leaves to sell. Because he showed respect, Yuri felt a kindness toward him, but no matter what, he shouldn't stay here. Ursula urged him to leave quickly. Yuri pleaded with Ursula not to send him away, warning that if he returned to the dungeon, he would surely die. Ursula didn't care if he lived or died, but Yuri cared deeply and begged Ursula to at least find a way to ensure he could return home safely. But Ursula truly couldn't help. As the guardian of the World Tree, she was bound to stay near it. Escorting him to the surface was impossible. Teleportation magic couldn't be used here. Yuri was devastated she couldn't keep him alive and began to cry. Ursula couldn't bear to see her little girl cry, so she devised another plan to make sure he could get home safely. Turning to him, she shouted, "I will personally." Ursula told him, "Train hard until you're strong enough to escape on your own." Hearing this, Yuri felt a surge of gratitude toward Ursula for agreeing to help. He was even more moved because he had thought death was certain here. He hugged Ursula, and even Urubut Ursula was not a fan of such affection. She pulled him away sharply and warned him. He was about to endure hellish training from one of the world's greatest masters. She warned him to take it seriously. She had no mercy for slackers. Yuri understood and vowed to give it his all. But as Ursula led him out to begin the training, a flicker of worry crossed his mind. Would she make him fight monsters alone? Moments later, Ursula confirmed that was exactly her plan, since battling monsters himself was the fastest way to learn. To start, she wanted him to fight a goblin lurking nearby, yet he saw nothing in the pitch-black surroundings. Ursula reminded him his eye had been replaced with a shard of the World Tree, and he needed to learn how to use it properly. Still, even with the spirit eye, nothing appeared. Ursula insisted he simply hadn't realized the eye's powers yet. Yuri reflected on how he lost his eye, and how Yuri had helped him heal it. When he finally opened his eye, the world suddenly lit up brilliantly. Now, he could see clearly. Ursula said it was time to begin training. She threw a stone at a nearby goblin and told him his first task: learn to dodge the goblin's lightning, fast attacks. Yuri thought it impossible the goblin moved too quickly to track, but Ursula told him to use his appraisal skill to scan the goblin's movements. Yuri doubted an appraiser's ability to do this, but he had no other choice. So he tried, and astonishingly, he could see the goblin's motions. Yet if he couldn't dodge the speed, it was useless. Still injured, Ursula created a shield and took out a vial of World Tree tears she borrowed from Yuri. She poured it over his severed ear. After it was reattached, she reminded him to take the training seriously or risk more injuries. Removing the shield, the goblin attacked again, but this time Yuri dodged, anticipating the strike. After a week of relentless practice, he finally got used to appraising the goblin's attacks and dodging every strike. Proud, he told Ursula he had mastered the technique, but careless vigilance let the goblin sneak behind and slash his back, spraying blood. Ursula formed a shield so they could rest. She laughed at his pain but admitted he dodged well and passed his first test. Now, on to the next lesson. She told him he must defeat the goblin. Yuri wanted to try but asked, "I'm not a fighter, how can I kill an S-rank monster?" Ursula anticipated this. Though fighting barehanded was impossible, he didn't have to. She forged a special sword for him. Reluctantly, Ursula accepted it, but Yuri willingly broke one of her branches to craft the blade her way of helping him. Deeply moved by her sacrifice, Yuri promised to wield the sword well. Ursula dropped the shield and had him face the goblin. When Yuri tried attacking, the goblin easily dodged. Ursula mocked him, saying with sword swings as slow as a turtle, he'd never hit the goblin. Knowing this, Yuri activated appraisal to predict the goblin's path and strike when it came close. But the goblin leapt right over him. It was no fool chasing fixed trajectories. If it saw an attack coming, it dodged. Yuri realized he needed a new strategy. Instead of just appraising attack trajectories, he had to analyze every aspect of the goblin's strike. He focused fully and executed a super appraisal as the goblin lunged. Though the goblin seemed still, Yuri perceived it moving in slow motion his eye, appraising at incredible speed. With a crystal clear view of the attack, he prepared and struck the goblin's face, taking it down instantly. Joy flooded him, he had defeated his first monster. But Ursula reminded him this was no time for celebration. He was just beginning. The next trial? Defeat over a dozen more goblins. Confident, Yuri dove right in. After hours of fighting, he had slain them all. Turning to Ursula, he awaited praise. But she said that for someone who could harness the World Tree's power, this was normal. Still, she admitted he'd improved drastically and was ready for the next step. Appraise the goblin's skills and make them his own. Yuri was puzzled. Appraisal only revealed skill info, didn't it? Ursula explained humans had a unique edge. They could learn skills through endless practice. With the spirit eye, he could not only see skill data but also absorb the experience behind it. This way, he could learn skills instantly. Hearing this, Yuri tried appraising the goblin's skill. Suddenly, his head felt like it would explode as a flood of information poured in all at once. He collapsed in pain, but as it eased, he had acquired the goblin's high-speed movement skill. In disbelief at how fast he learned, he tested it running along the dungeon corridor at an incredible speed, faster than ever before. But there was a problem. His body wasn't used to the speed, and after seconds, every muscle tore painfully. Ursula caught up and poured World Tree tears to heal him. If his body couldn't handle the power, he'd have to train until he adapted. His muscles continued tearing with each run, but thanks to World Tree tears, Ursula kept healing him. Ursula pointed out a remarkable human trait, the ability to learn skills through relentless practice. With the keen eyes of the spirit, Yen didn't just see skill information, he absorbed the accompanying experience. This meant he could master skills instantly. Hearing this, Yen tested the goblin's skill appraisal. Suddenly, his head felt like it was about to explode as a torrent of knowledge flooded his mind. A flood of information crashed into his mind all at once. He collapsed in agony, but as the pain subsided, he found himself gifted with the goblin's high-speed movement skill. It was almost unbelievable how quickly he had learned it, so he decided to test it out, sprinting down the dungeon corridor. Amazed by his unbelievable speed faster than before, he felt a surge of exhilaration. But there was a problem. His body wasn't used to this speed, and after just a few seconds, every muscle fiber in his body screamed in pain, tearing apart. Ursula caught up to him and poured some World Tree tears to heal his wounds. If his body couldn't withstand this power, he'd have to keep training until he adapted. Each run shredded his muscles anew, but thanks to Ursula's healing tears, his body kept repairing. Eventually, his muscles stopped tearing. Now he possessed a hardened body and the skill of acceleration. He wondered if he was strong enough to challenge the Death Bear, but Ursula warned him he'd still be crushed in a fight. Though fast and agile, he lacked offensive power, so Ursula decided to let him copy one of her skills. Excited by the offer, he asked what her skill was. She cast a fireball at him, her skill called Breaking the Chant. It let her cast magic without chanting spells. He knew this was an incredibly powerful skill and looked forward to mastering it, but Ursula only allowed him to appraise it when she playfully threw the fireball at him. He analyzed the attack, and finally learned the Breaking the Chant magic. Then, just as before, Ursula threw another fireball, knocking him to the ground in pain. After healing once more, he began training to cast magic without chanting. Lacking a magical profession, his mana pool was too small and drained quickly. Luckily, each time Ursula healed him with World Tree tears, his mana recovered and his maximum mana increased a little. But mastering fire magic would take a long journey. After 2 weeks of magic training, he learned how to cast mid-level spells and could now shoot over 1,000 fireballs at once's spectacular display of power. He pursued this path simply because it brought a spark of joy to her. He analyzed that attack and finally learned how to break the spell. But just as hope bloomed, Ursula hurled a fireball, sending him crashing to the ground in agony. After healing once more, he began training to wield magic without incantations. Without a magic-related profession, his mana reserves were painfully scarce and drained fast. Thankfully, each time the tears of the tree healed him, his mana not only recovered, but its capacity grew bit by bit. Yet, mastering fire magic would demand a long, grueling practice. After 2 weeks of intense training, he unlocked mid-level magic, now able to launch over 1,000 fireballs simultaneously. With new skills and enhanced appraisal abilities, Ursula believed he was ready to face the Death Bear. Honestly, the thought of confronting such a fierce beast alone stirred unease within him, but Ursula reassured him that if he wielded every technique she taught, victory would be within reach. So, when he faced the bear, its claws struck out, but he read its movements perfectly. Before its blow landed, he countered with a close-range wind slash. The spell dealt heavy damage but wasn't enough to fell the beast. He unleashed a barrage of fireballs, relentless until the Death Bear collapsed lifeless. The battle was easier than he'd imagined, sparking a question: was the bear truly that weak, or had he simply grown too powerful? After the beast's fall, he quickly appraised it, eager to steal its skills. The pounding headache faded like a hammer blow lifted. Ursula declared he was finally ready to swim free from this dungeon on his own. But before he left, she had a small gift. Though truth be told, it was coaxed out by her little protégé Yuri. Ursula herself wasn't exactly the nurturing type. She said she would craft a new spirit eye for him, using the leftover core of the World Tree. Feeling unworthy of such a precious gift, he hesitated to accept. His face fell like a drooping flag, but Ursula snapped that it was just a loan. Because his father had already sealed the core, if he died, it would automatically return, so he better just shut up and take it. He dared not argue, resigned to let Ursula implant the spirit core into his eye, but after the procedure, he felt no immediate change. Ursula explained his body needed time to adapt to the new spirit eye, so its powers wouldn't awaken just yet. Still, he was deeply grateful. Turning to thank Yuri, he realized she was nowhere to be seen. Then suddenly she appeared right before him from inside his eye itself. He asked where she had come from, and she cheerfully replied that she had just stepped out from within his eye. With the World Tree core now embedded, he was like a walking version of the World Tree itself, allowing Yuri to freely come and go as she pleased. Yuri promised to support him wholeheartedly, healing his wounds whenever they appeared. Being close to Yuri delighted him, but he still worried, was Ursula truly okay with this arrangement? Ursula immediately booted him in the face, making it clear she was far from thrilled to entrust her precious Yuri to a fool like him. But since Yuri had been confined here since birth, never seeing the outside world or making friends, Ursula reluctantly accepted. Though Ursula might not like him, after spending time by her side, she realized he was a good man deep down. The kind-hearted young man earned Ursula's trust, so she entrusted him with guiding Yuri out and showing the girl how vast this world truly is. Feeling honored by Ursula's faith, he vowed to care for Yuri with all his heart. Ursula, satisfied, had one more special gift before he set off. She told him to stretch out his hand, and when he did, she imbued it with a touch of magic. Curious, he asked what it was. She explained it was an infinite storage spell. With this mark, he could store anything inside it, like a magical pocket. The first thing she wanted him to store was the spirit sword she had crafted for him, but before handing it over, she stabbed it straight into his eye, causing him to fall to the ground in pain. Yet, just before his eye fully healed, Ursula shoved a death stone down his throat. Confused, he demanded to know what the old woman was doing. Ursula's voice boomed. The death stone forged a permanent link between them. Now, she could see everything he saw and warned him to behave, especially to keep any thoughts about Yuri far away. This shocking revelation left him feeling a bit deflated, but there was no turning back. Now, he was ready to leave this cursed dungeon behind. Before departing, he asked Yuri what she wished for most upon reaching the surface. After a moment's thought, Yuri said she longed to reunite with her family. Unsure if Yuri had any family beyond Ursula, the old woman explained that all the world trees were once part of a colossal world tree, but at some point, the cores split and hid in different dungeons, separating Yuri from her siblings for many years. Hearing this, he promised to travel the world with her so they could find all the spirit cores of the world trees. But before that dream could begin, they had to escape this dungeon first. As he ventured deeper, he reached a fork and didn't know which way to go. Suddenly, Ursula's voice echoed in his mind, telling him to turn left. She had already used his eye to light the path. As long as he followed her guidance, he couldn't get lost. Moreover, she warned of a giant venomous snake approaching and told him to prepare for battle. Minutes later, he had defeated the S-rank venomous snake. Pride swelled within him, overcoming such a foe with ease. Before he could savor the spoils, Ursula informed him she had used his eye to analyze the snake's skills. Bracing for the usual headache, he clutched his head only to find no pain at all, thanks to Yuri's healing touch, which soothed his mind the moment pain threatened to surface. He realized he might never suffer those agonizing headaches when absorbing new abilities again. Thrilled, he thanked her and let out a victorious whistle. At last, he reached a door that looked ominous. Ursula explained this was the lair of the dungeon's boss, the dungeon itself a living entity feeding on the dead. Its core was like the dungeon's heart, guarded by a monstrous worm. The only way out was to defeat this creature and destroy the core. Doubt gnawed at him. Defeating S-rank monsters was one thing, but surely the boss was many times stronger. Still, he refused to back down. He was no longer the weakling he once was. Opening the door to the boss room, he saw the core across the chamber. But as he and Yuri advanced, they triggered a summoning circle, and a colossal golem appeared. This battle would be brutal. He told Yuri to retreat into his eye for safety while he took on the golem. Dodging the first strike with enhanced speed, he couldn't evade the second, and braced himself with a super strength skill, blocking the blow. Touching the golem, he activated the venom skill gained from the snake, melting part of its arm. The poison inflicted significant damage, but it wasn't enough to fell the towering foe. Ursula then granted him a special exception. He could unleash the ultimate move she had taught him, with enough mana to perform a dazzling final blow. And knowing Yuri would heal him if he fell, he had no choice but to go all out. He unleashed the Nova Burster massive energy sphere, crashing into the golem. The behemoth disintegrated into smoke and dust. Amazingly, he felt no exhaustion or mana drain. Yet, to protect her husband, Yuri stepped out to replenish his mana and celebrated his victory. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he thanked his wife profusely. Yuri's joy grew, much to Ursula's irritation, who scolded him to quickly assess the golem's skills and stop spoiling her daughter. He complied, and once done, Ursula told him there was one more thing to appraise the dungeon core. As he examined it, Ursula appeared beside him, surprising him since he thought she couldn't leave the World Tree. She confirmed she was bound to it, but since all the World Tree cores were now within his eye, his body was almost the World Tree itself. This allowed her to teleport within a certain range around him. Setting that aside, she explained the dungeon core functioned like a spirit core and could upgrade his spirit eye if he wished. Without hesitation, he agreed. Ursula placed the dungeon core into his eye, upgrading it to level 2. She added that he could further enhance it by conquering other dungeons and harvesting their cores. The trio left the boss room, the door slamming shut behind them, sealing their way back. Ursula guessed the dungeon was locking itself now that its core was taken, and the hole he'd fallen through was likely sealed as well. This was good, it meant no one else would accidentally stumble upon the World Tree. Ursula also no longer had to worry about protecting Yuri. From now on, the three could roam freely. Meanwhile, in Joytown, the local adventurers were spinning tales about the dungeon's tragedy, how one of them nearly became a snack for a hellhound. The only reason he survived was because the young man bravely sacrificed himself, standing between him and the beast so he could escape. The man boasted arrogantly, believing no one knew the truth, since he assumed the hero was dead and couldn't expose him. The three left the boss room, the door slamming shut behind them, locking them out forever. Ursula guessed the dungeon sealed itself after they defeated the boss and took its core. The hole he fell through was probably sealed too. This was good, it meant no one would accidentally fall in and discover the World Tree. Ursula no longer needed to worry about protecting Yuri. From now on, the trio was free to roam without fear. Meanwhile, in Joytown, adventurers were gossiping about the dungeon tragedy, where Joy almost got devoured by a hellhound. The only reason he escaped was because he claimed that En bravely sacrificed himself, taking the hit so Joy could run away. Joy told the story with such arrogance because he believed On was dead and would never come back to expose him. But suddenly, En appeared behind Joy, having overheard every word of Joy's fabricated tale. En recounted to everyone how Joy and Jolin had paralyzed him and left him for the dogs to eat. The tavern erupted in Outregino. One could believe they had pitied such a cruel man for so long. They all threw things at Joy in anger, but En stopped the mob. Though he still hated Joy for what he did, without that betrayal, he wouldn't have met Yuri or Ursula. So, he was genuinely grateful to this scoundrel. With the Joy affair settled, En felt confident to move forward. He and the others set out for a swamp dungeon near the capital. After swiftly clearing it, Ursula used the dungeon core to upgrade En's eyes. Thanks to this upgrade, he could now read all kinds of scripts. He was happy with this new ability, but apologized for still not finding an S-rank dungeon. Now that the Joy ordeal was behind him, he felt confident to move forward. Soon, he and the others set off toward a swamp dungeon near the capital. After swiftly clearing it, Ursula used the dungeon's core to upgrade his eyes. Thanks to this upgrade, he could now read every form of writing. Though happy about the new power, He still apologized for not yet finding any clue about Yuri's siblings. Ursula warned it wouldn't be easy to discover the other world trees, apologizing that it might take longer than he imagined to reunite Yuri with her family. But Yuri said she didn't mind, she was just happy to be traveling alongside him. Just then, the distant scream of a girl reached them. Yuri wanted to help, and without hesitation he dashed toward the source. The girl's carriage was under attack by monsters. He swiftly wiped out the horde. Once the beasts were defeated, Yuri began healing the wounded soldiers. He approached the girl, asking if she was okay. But the moment she saw the handsome face of her hero, only one thought filled her mind. Wow, he's so handsome. She threw herself into his arms, calling him her hero. He was caught off guard and unsure how to handle this, so he asked the man beside him for help. But Jasper was merely the head of a merchant guild. How could he control the actions of Princess Claudia? Soon after, the princess invited him and the others to her mansion to properly thank them. Though the third princess of the kingdom, she was approachable and told them not to be too formal. She even tried to leap forward to hug him. But before she could touch him, Yuri stepped in front of Claudia, claiming her territory by forbidding the stranger from touching him. Claudia asked why Yuri was so defensive and wanted to know their relationship. Unable to hold back, Yuri blurted out that she didn't want Claudia to touch him because she was his wife. Cut to his face stunned, almost ready to faint, hearing he already had a wife, and a beautiful one at that. Still, Claudia refused to give up, saying she had no problem being his second wife. As Claudia and Yuri argued over him, Jasper arrived with something to say. "I want to marry you," he declared. "Whether as husband or wife doesn't really matter." So here were 3 people wanting to marry him all in one day. But before he could react, Jasper invited him down to the basement to show him something. Jasper was the head of the Juno Merchant Guild, the richest and most famous guild around, which he already knew about. Jasper led them to his treasure room and explained he had spent his life collecting the world's most beautiful gems. And today, he had found the most exquisite jewel of all. He knew the eyes were crafted from a spirit core because he had studied them extensively and, from that first glance, he had fallen in love with those eyes. En wanted to propose to Urano just for a moment, but to spend every day gazing into those eyes for the rest of his life. Yuri hesitated, fearing the jewels that might come with it. Then Ursula pulled En aside, urging him to reconsider. Jasper might hold secrets about the locations of the other spirit cores. Plus, Jasper was wealthy. If Yuri married him, she could tap into his riches and resources. But Yuri didn't want to be a gold digger. En asked Jasper if they could just be friends instead of marrying. Jasper agreed, at least for now. Then Yuri probed Jasper for any information about the other spirit cores. Jasper confirmed he knew, but their locations were perilous, so he hadn't dared to investigate. Yet, with Yuri here, those dangers seemed manageable. Armed with Jasper's intel, Yuri discovered a secret dungeon where he hoped Yuri's siblings might be waiting. He promised Yuri he'd do everything to reunite her with her family. Entering the dungeon, On reached a dead end, unsure what to do next, since Jasper insisted something had to be there. Ursula explained that a magical circle on the wall would transport them deeper inside. En touched it and suddenly found himself standing on a high cliff, looking down on a forest below. Amazed that a whole forest could fit inside this dungeon, Yuri revealed it was an illusion spun by powerful magic. Just then, a voice echoed a familiar voice talking to them. Yuri recognized it as her sister Pina's. Eager to meet her, Yuri asked where Pina was, but she was at the dungeon's far end. To see her, they'd have to clear the dungeon first. En groaned, dreading the exhausting task ahead, and asked if Pina could teleport them there. But Pina said she couldn't use that kind of magic, so En accepted he'd have to grind through the whole dungeon. Pina was surprised by En's confidence. She thought he was bluffing. She warned she had traps everywhere, and couldn't guarantee he wouldn't get hurt. En knew it was dangerous, but was certain he could handle it. Intrigued yet skeptical, Pina didn't trust smooth-talking men like him, and secretly looked forward to watching him struggle through her dungeon. Right then, a pit appeared before En, ready to catch him off guard. But En spotted it easily, and leapt over the trap, leaving Pina embarrassed. He continued dodging every trap she set, driving her mad since she'd poured so much effort into them. Why was she angry? En wasn't foolish enough to fall into traps just to make others happy. Yuri explained Pina loved to prank people to lighten the mood, but to En, there was nothing fun about deadly traps falling meant certain doom. Pina cut him off, insisting she wasn't cruel. She loved her dungeon but designed it to automatically eject explorers if they faced mortal danger, so her traps never killed anyone. Still, they could make someone suffer enough to wet their pants. Then she threatened to unleash her battle-hardened monsters on En. The first appeared, an S-rank plant monster that spewed a pink sleeping gas. Pina taunted En, confident the gas would knock him out instantly. But En just smirked proudly. He felt no drowsiness thanks to a skill that protected him from all negative effects. Pina was shocked to her core and erupted in frustration, yelling that En was ruining her dungeon like a game hacker. But En understood her anger. He was clearing the dungeon too easily. Still, he drew his sword and sliced the monster in half. While analyzing the monster for skills, something struck En's head, a stealthy monster attacking from the shadows. Yuri explained the creature was cloaked in invisibility magic. But En wasn't worried. He had abilities to nullify ambush attacks and could disable normal attacks while standing still, making him nearly invincible. Pina couldn't believe her ears. Even if her invisible monsters couldn't hurt En, she doubted he could kill them without seeing them. True to her words, the monsters were hidden, but En's special hack eyes detected their positions quickly. With a supreme gravity spell, he swiftly defeated them. Pina's cheeks burned with frustration. Her carefully crafted traps and monsters were all for nothing. Regaining her composure, she declared no way En could kill her next two trump cards, Arch and Centaur. Yet, just 3 seconds later, En dispatched them like they were mere ants. The S-rank monster unleashed a pink gas at En. Pina mocked him, calling it sleep gas, confident it would knock him out instantly. But En smirked proudly, claiming he felt no drowsiness thanks to a skill that made him immune to all negative status effects. Pina was shocked to her core, furious and yelling that En was like a game hacker ruining the dungeon's fun. En understood her frustration. He was breezing through this dungeon too easily for Yuri's sake. He quickly drew his sword and cleaved the Ozan monster in two. Then he appraised it to learn its skills, but while distracted, something struck his head. Another monster was attacking from the shadows, invisible to his eyes. Yuri explained the creature was using stealth magic to avoid detection, but even unseen, En had a skill that nullified all sneak attack. Plus, he had another ability that blocked normal attacks when standing still, making him nearly invincible. Pina couldn't believe what she was hearing. Yet despite her invisible monsters causing no damage, En couldn't defeat them without seeing them. True, as she said, but En's special hack eyes soon detected their positions. In seconds, he unleashed an ultimate gravity spell, swiftly wiping them out. Pina seethed with frustration as all her careful preparations crumbled. But she regained her confidence, boldly declaring En could never kill her next monsters. She unleashed her two trump cards, Arch and Centaur, yet within 3 seconds, En dispatched them like they were mere ants. In an instant, he unleashed the ultimate gravity spell, swiftly crushing them all. Pina's cheeks burned red with frustration. Her painstaking efforts all reduced to dust. Yet, she gathered her spirit again, burning with fierce confidence, boldly declaring that no way in hell could anyone kill her next monsters. Then, she unleashed her two trump cards, Arch and Centaur. But 3 seconds later, he slaughtered them like they were mere ants. Pina officially surrendered after witnessing this, convinced he had become something beyond human, a demon incarnate. After all, no one in history had ever slain 2 S-rank beasts at once. Meanwhile, Joy's life as an adventurer crumbled after his true nature was exposed. When he stepped into the guild hall, every adventurer's gaze pierced him with disdain, knowing he used this him as bait to escape. But then, fate threw Joy a sliver of hope. He unexpectedly ran into Jolin, his close, trusted friend. Joy's heart soared. Surely she wouldn't abandon him. After all, they shared a bond deeper than blood, but he was dead wrong. Friendship, it seemed, was just survival of the fittest. The moment Joy approached, Jolin turned her back, shedding a few crocodile tears to convince everyone she was innocent. Joy's anger flare told her to stop lying and reminded the men around that she was the one who cast the paralysis spell on him. But Jolin's sly retort flipped the story, claiming she had no choice because Joy had threatened her. And just like that, every blame piled onto Joy's shoulders. Joy was mercilessly expelled from the guild, warned that no adventurer would partner with someone as despicable as him. Confused, Joy couldn't grasp why everyone treated him like a disposable pawn. He was sure if they were surrounded by wolves in his shoes, they'd have abandoned him too. So he blamed him for dragging him into this mess. Usually, C-rank quests meant stealing from others. No way could he single-handedly slay those monsters. That's exactly why En avoided the guild. Everyone looked down on him simply because he was a low-ranking appraiser. But not everyone shared that scorn. Guildmaster Megan stepped out of her office, condemning all adventurers for mocking someone they'd never met, just because En's skill rank was low. Then the receptionist scanned the items En brought with an appraisal device, and was stunned to see they were all genuine. Jasper even vouched personally that En was strong enough to defeat all those monsters. Realizing her mistake in teasing En, the receptionist sincerely apologized. Megan also apologized on behalf of her staff and promised to strictly reprimand the receptionist and guild members for their inappropriate behavior later. Though rank is assigned at birth, Megan was genuinely pleased to see people like En refusing to accept fate and breaking through limits. En felt lucky to have someone like Megan who didn't judge him just by rank. Suddenly, a noise behind him made Joy jump, but there was nothing there. Relieved, he thought danger had passed until his hand brushed a teleportation wall, pulling him into En's secret dungeon. Now, real peril was no longer a shadow but a looming reality. Joy realized this dungeon must be hiding fierce monsters, but his fiery spirit refused to back down. He told himself he could handle whatever came his way. That confidence was shattered just 2 steps in, when Joy fell victim to a spike trap. Death was close, but fate smiled. Pina, who disliked killing, was in the middle of her prayers and managed to teleport him out. She told Joy he could try again if he wished. Realizing he couldn't die here, Joy saw a chance to prove himself, ready to face the dungeon over and over until he mastered it. So, Joy plunged back into the dungeon, repeatedly falling into traps, each failure a painful lesson. Eventually, he reached a clearing deep in the forest, only to face a colossal S-rank dragon lizard. One swipe of its tail left him gravely wounded. Pina found the struggle amusing, but refused to let anyone die in her dungeon. She offered to teleport Joy out if he surrendered. Refusing to give up, Joy fought on, only to have his arm crushed by the beast's relentless attack. His scream of pain drowned out any surrender. Just as the dragon prepared another deadly blow, En appeared out of nowhere and struck it down with a single flawless strike. Joy was stunned who could slay an S-rank monster so effortlessly. Yet, looking from behind, he did not recognize his savior. When they finally faced each other, En asked why Joy was here, and Joy returned the question. En explained he was conquering the dungeon, and Joy was just an obstacle in his path. Though reluctant, En still asked Yuri to heal Joy's broken arm before knocking him unconscious so Pina could teleport him out. Then, En moved toward the boss's chamber. Pina warned En that to meet her, he must defeat the dungeon's boss. En felt uneasy, thinking defeating the boss would seal the dungeon forever, but that wasn't the case. Ursula explained that, as long as the dungeon's core stayed intact, the dungeon could regenerate itself. And with that assurance, En pressed forward, ready for the final challenge. The weight of destiny hung heavy, but with each step, En wasn't just fighting for glory, was carving his own path through shadows and secrets. And as the dungeon's mysteries unraveled, so too did the ties that bound these characters in a web of rivalry, survival, and unexpected salvation. Confident the dungeon would be safe, En stepped inside, ready to face the boss. But as he entered, no sign of a monster appeared. Suddenly the ground trembled beneath him. Swift as the wind, En used his flight skill to soar upwards, narrowly escaping harm. That's when he realized the so-called beast was a colossal turtle. A flicker of panic flashed in En's eyes. Its size was overwhelming. But fear wouldn't win this battle, so he launched a barrage of fiery orbs at the giant shell. Yet, as the smoke cleared, the turtle remained unscathed, untouched by his flames. In a swift counterattack, the turtle sent a sphere of water hurtling toward En. With precise sword skills, he deflected the attack, but again it caused no damage. Frustration crept in, as every strike seemed futile. However, a closer look revealed scorch marks on the ground from the fireballs and puddles from the water spheres. En was sure his attacks had hit the target. Suddenly, a realization dawned. He dropped down and allowed the turtle to stomp on him, proving his theory. Just as he suspected, the massive turtle was only an illusion. The stomp left him unharmed, confirming the truth. Now aware of the trickery, En uttered a spell to dispel the illusion, revealing the true boss beneath, a tiny, adorable baby turtle. Ursula was stunned, her usual composure shattered by shock. Even she hadn't caught the illusion. But as she appraised the little turtle, she uncovered a secret so unbelievable, it left her speechless. En, puzzled by Ursula's reaction, felt a strange empathy for the tiny creature. Despite its role as the dungeon's guardian, he refused to harm it. Instead, he asked Pina to concede defeat. Pina's pride wouldn't allow it. She insisted she wouldn't give up until On defeated the turtle. On teased her, did she really want him to slay such an adorable creature? Feeling guilty, Pina admitted her loss and offered to let them enter her room. As they stepped inside, Yuri immediately flung herself into Pina's arms, spinning her until Pina grew dizzy. Yuri apologized for her enthusiasm, but was genuinely overjoyed to see her. Still slightly annoyed that En had breezed through her dungeon, Pina warned Yuri not to be mad at him after all. He was kind-hearted. Hearing Yuri fiercely defend En, it hit her. She might be in love. With a teasing smile, Yuri nudged her sister, causing Pina's cheeks to flush in embarrassment, though she couldn't deny it. Now reunited, Pina revealed she had a favor to ask. She wanted to join En on his journey, and even offered her spirit core as a pledge if he agreed. Yuri was thrilled at this idea and eagerly asked En for his answer. Of course, with such an irresistible proposal, En saw no reason to refuse. Just then, the baby turtle leapt off En's shoulder and transformed into a charming girl. She introduced herself as Kuro, the guardian of Pina, daughter of the celestial turtle god. Kuro's presence was formidable. Even Ursula was visibly shaken, struggling to maintain her usual stern politeness. Because Kuro was Pina's protector, En needed her permission for Pina to accompany him. Kuro agreed, but with one condition: she would come along too. She handed En a death stone, explaining that if he combined it with the spirit core, both girls could join him. Kuro's abilities included creating powerful barriers, so she promised to be an invaluable ally. Meanwhile, outside the dungeon, Joy finally awakened, overwhelmed by a profound realization. The only reason he was still alive was because the very person he had tormented for years and had chosen to save him. Overcome with emotion, Joy rolled aside and broke down in tears, mourning his own miserable fate. Later, Jasper joined En as they headed to the local adventurers guild to sell the dungeon loot. With Jasper by his side, even the daunting lines became easier to navigate. Everyone knew Jasper was a wealthy merchant, but no one recognized his connection to En. Jasper informed the receptionist that En had come to sell rare dungeon treasures and immediately offered to buy everything. Thanks to Jasper's influence, the receptionist eagerly welcomed En, asking for his guild membership card to verify his status. But upon seeing the card, her face froze in disbelief and was only a low-rank appraiser. She stood stunned for 5 seconds before her attitude turned sour, doubting that someone so low-ranked could have defeated any monster. Other adventurers joined in, mocking him mercilessly. Yet, Jasper encouraged En to confidently show off the items in his skill bag. En opened his inventory to reveal a mountain of S-rank monster parts he had hunted himself. Still, the guild members accused him of stealing rather than fighting. This was exactly why En hated coming here. He was always looked down upon because of his rank, but not everyone was quick to judge. Guildmaster Megan stepped out from her office, condemning the adventurers for ridiculing someone they'd never met, all because of a rank. She ordered the receptionist to scan En's items with an appraisal device, and her shock was palpable when all were confirmed genuine. Jasper vouched for En's strength, assuring everyone he was capable of slaying those monsters. Realizing her mistake, the receptionist sincerely apologized. Megan also apologized on behalf of the guild members, promising strict reminders about proper conduct. Despite rank being predetermined, Megan was heartened by people like En, who refused to accept their fate and broke through limits. En felt fortunate to meet someone like Megan, who judged him beyond just numbers. Megan showed genuine goodwill, confident their paths would cross again soon. But for now, she had work to do and left En to handle the rest. Megan was quite fond of On. She was certain their paths would cross again soon. But for now, she had work to do and left On to handle the rest on his own. The receptionist asked En to wait in the lounge while she processed his items. Yet En still had many materials to sell. He'd cleared out the entire secret dungeon. Hearing he'd single-handedly cleaned out a secret dungeon, all the mockers suddenly swarmed him, eager for details. But as an introvert who shunned attention, En quickly made his escape from the crowd, mocking someone they'd never even met just because his skill rank was too low. Then, the receptionist scanned the items he brought with a special appraisal device and gasped in shock. Every piece was genuine. Jasper confirmed he personally vouched for his strength to defeat all those monsters. The receptionist realized her mistake, teasing him, and sincerely apologized. Megan also stepped in, apologizing on behalf of the staff and promising to strictly reprimand the receptionist and guild members for their unprofessional conduct. Despite a person's rank being set at birth, Megan felt joy seeing those like him who refused to accept fate and break through their limits. And he felt lucky to meet someone like Megan, who judged him beyond just his rank. Megan had a strong feeling they would cross paths again soon. But for now, she had work to do and left him to handle the rest. The receptionist asked him to wait in the lounge while she processed all his items. However, he still had many materials to sell. He had cleared out an entire secret dungeon alone. Hearing this, those who had mocked him earlier swarmed around, eager for details. But being an introvert who hated the spotlight, he bolted away from the crowd. That night, he soaked in a hot bath, trying to melt away the stress. Yet, just as peace began to settle, tranquility proved elusive. Yuri suddenly appeared beside him. It took a moment for him to collect himself. Then, realizing she was casually lounging in the bath with him, he panicked and scrambled away in shock. But Yuri couldn't understand why he was avoiding her, like she was some kind of plague, especially since they'd been inseparable day after day. Just then, Pina showed up, ready to stir the pot, teasing that it wasn't Yuri he feared, but that his little bird might not survive the sight of Yuri's stunning beauty. He vehemently denied any such thoughts and hurried to explain. First off, Yuri and Pina had no business being here. It was the men's bath after all. But Pina reminded him that she and Yuri were spirits, not humans, so human rules simply didn't bind them. Then, with a cheeky grin, she asked if he might lose control with them around. At that very moment, Ursula appeared, clearly displeased that he dared to ogle Yuri's form. She threatened to unleash the most terrible magic upon him if he even thought about touching Yuri. Yuri begged Ursula to stop, insisting she didn't mind him looking at her. But hearing that, Ursula suspected some kind of seduction was at play and prepared to send him flying. Yuri warned him to run, because Ursula might actually mean it this time. Meanwhile, Pina just sat back, eagerly watching the drama unfold. Once the magical standoff ended, he climbed out of the bathtub and sat down at the table, desperate to avoid any further assassination attempts from Ursula. Kurahim was there too, but thankfully she behaved far more normally than the old witch, so he could relax and chat comfortably. Kurahim thought it was wonderful to see everyone so happy. Pina was also more cheerful than ever. Kurahim said Pina was like a daughter to her, because as her guardian she had created Pina's spirit core, which eventually grew into a full personality. Besides Yuri and Pina, he remembered there were 6 others. But Kurahim corrected him, it was actually 7. He was confused because he had heard the first world tree had withered years ago. Kurahim explained that the spirit core of the first tree, Echidna, was still out there somewhere, even though no one knew her whereabouts. The same went for the other tree spirits. They had no way to confirm their locations, so he realized it would be incredibly difficult to find them all. But that didn't mean he would give up, because his ultimate goal was to make Yuri happy and help her reunite with her family. The next day, Megan visited Jasper's mansion to find him, carrying a special request. He asked why she came to him when she could ask anyone from the guild, but this task was something only he could accomplish. She asked if he knew anything about Beamos. He had never heard of it before, so she explained it was one of the legendary dragons, summoned by the demon lord Mictrin. The spirit of the first tree, Echidna, was still out there somewhere, though no one knew exactly where. The same went for the other tree spirits. Without their trust, finding them all seemed nearly impossible. But that didn't mean he would give up. His ultimate goal was to make Yuri happy and reunite her with her family. The next day, Megan came to Jasper's mansion seeking him with a special request. He asked why she chose him when she could ask anyone from the guild, but this mission was one only he could complete. Megan asked if he knew anything about Beamos. He hadn't heard the name before, so she explained it was one of the legendary dragons, summoned by the demon lord Mictrin. After Murin was sealed away, Beamos vanished until recently reappearing. Strangely, it only attacked merchants passing through the area. That's why Megan entrusted him with an SS rank mission, to defeat Beamos. The task was deadly, possibly costing him his life, so Megan understood if he declined. But before she could finish, he said he would accept. He set off toward the desert where Beamos was last seen. Ursula had pinpointed its location, but before attacking, she warned him that Beamos could absorb magical attacks and wield the air itself to unleash strikes capable of tearing through space. He took her warning to heart. Since Beamos absorbed magic, he'd have to rely on his sword, not spells, to fight. Before anything else, he needed to draw Beamos's attention since it was sleeping beneath the sand. He chose to unleash a Nova explosion spell, shaking the ground and forcing Beamos to rise annoyed at the disturbance. In a life stretching long beyond measure. Gradually, it grew bored of battles without rivals. Though it might not look impressive, Beamos acknowledged that he wielded some potent magic. Yet none of his spells fazed Beamos. The beast demanded, "Who dares challenge the mighty Beamos?" He introduced himself, simply mere human here to slay it. Beamos thought it a foolish joke. A fragile human couldn't possibly defeat him. But the man's confidence made Beamos curious enough to drag him ashore for a proper fight. Beamos declared he was the Demon King's ultimate creation, the strongest monster alive. But if Beamos was the best the Demon King could muster, then in his eyes the Demon King was just a weakling. The insult ignited Beamos's fury, bombarding him with magical bullets. Yet he dodged swiftly, escaping the deadly hail. But as an earth dragon, Beamos warned, on this desert terrain he couldn't escape. Stomping the ground, Beamos trapped him within a swirling sand trap. Instantly, he activated his acceleration skill, speeding forward to close the distance. Once near, he slashed Beamos's arm. The beast realized he was a genuine threat and shifted tactics, diving back into the sand to counterattack. While Beamos swam beneath the surface, he was invisible as next strike a mystery. And just when he let his guard down, Beamos lunged up from below and swallowed him whole. Beamos laughed, brimming with confidence, believing he'd proven his supremacy against this foolish weakling. But he celebrated prematurely the very next moment. His head exploded. Bewildered, Beamos realized he had gravely underestimated him. Yet he felt no anger and defeat. Rather, he accepted his loss gracefully, acknowledging the man as a worthy opponent. Before dying, Beamos demanded to know how he was defeated. He explained simply that Beamos's magic absorption worked only on its outer scales, so he had cast a high-level spell from inside Beamos's mouth. Beamos questioned why he wasn't harmed. Because he had erected a magical shield to protect himself from the explosion. Beamos admitted his arrogance had blinded him after countless victories. Even as life slipped away, he felt content, accepting defeat by a human. He felt a pang of guilt for Beamos, who killed only because the Demon King made him so. But in truth, Beamos had slain many innocents, so he couldn't let it live. Ursula urged him to quickly analyze Beamos's skills and claim them. With the battle over, everyone rushed to congratulate him on his victory. Upon returning, he was summoned to the palace for an unknown reason. While waiting, the princess approached him. She apologized for not visiting more often, despite being his second wife. He reminded her they weren't truly married yet. She brushed off his words and informed him he was summoned because her father wished to meet him, When the king arrived, his fierce demeanor made him intimidating. He tried to appear respectful, but unlike his fearsome entrance, the king was surprisingly approachable, telling him not to worry about formalities. They sat, and the king thanked him for agreeing to meet. He'd heard from Megan that he defeated the ancient dragon Beamos, and as king of the land, felt duty-bound to reward him, but he humbly declined the reward. Yet defeating Beamos wasn't his only feat, also saved the princess when her carriage was attacked. As her father, the king expressed heartfelt gratitude. He credited Yuri, saying without her help, he wouldn't be this strong. The king thanked Yuri too, but she shyly hid behind him, uncomfortable around strangers. The king said he could read a person well, and saw he wouldn't let power cloud his judgment, despite great strength. The king had other duties, so he ended the meeting. Before leaving, he presented him with a royal family watch, granting free passage anywhere in the kingdom. He hesitated accepting such a valuable gift, but it would ease his search for Yuri's family by opening normally restricted areas. He politely accepted. News of Beamos' defeat spread like wildfire, catapulting his fame to new heights. Meanwhile, Joy spiraled into despair, shunned and despised. His greatest frustration was hearing of his rival's achievements, once stronger than him, now overshadowed. He had longed to meet him face to face. Hearing from Megan that he had defeated the ancient dragon Beamos, the king of this land felt compelled to reward him. Yet he humbly declined the reward. But defeating Beamos wasn't his only feat. He also saved the princess when her carriage was attacked. As her father, the king had to thank him. He said if anyone deserved thanks, it was Yuri, for without her support, he wouldn't be the strong man he was now. The king thanked Yuri as well, but she shyly hid behind him, uncomfortable speaking to strangers. The king said he could read a person's character well, and he saw in him someone who would never let power cloud his reason, no matter how great his strength. With other matters calling, the king ended their meeting, but not before presenting a gift, a watch bearing the royal family's emblem. With it, he could travel anywhere in the kingdom without hindrance. Though hesitant to accept such a precious item, he knew it would help him explore forbidden places to find Yuri's family more easily, so he accepted it politely. News of his victory over Beamos spread across the kingdom, raising his fame to new heights. Meanwhile, Joy was spiraling downward, shunned and despised by all. What stung most was hearing about his achievements, especially since not long ago, Joy had been far stronger. He wished things were better if only he remained weak or didn't exist. Suddenly, a woman's voice offered help. She introduced herself as a tree spirit named Echidna. Yuri woke from a deep sleep as Pina entered the room. Having just bathed, Pina was drying her hair when she confessed her worry about him. Since the battle with the dragon, he'd been unconscious, and she feared something was wrong. Pina assured her he was likely just exhausted from the intense fight. If Yuri wanted him to feel better, Pina suggested cooking him a hearty meal. He'd surely appreciate that. Yuri loved the idea, her ears twitching with excitement. So Pina invited her sister out shopping before he woke. Yuri worried about going out without him. It was dangerous with all the pervy guys lurking hungry for a glimpse of her precious assets. Still, Pina convinced her it would be safe if they just stepped out briefly. Meanwhile, he lay in bed, trapped in a nightmare. Images of his past life flashed before him, dragged around like a beast of burden by Joy, treated like trash no matter how hard he smiled. After all, she only wanted to protect them, but Pina reassured her it would be fine if they just stepped out briefly and returned soon. Meanwhile, he lay deeply asleep on the bed, caught in a nightmare. He saw haunting images of his past life, once a beast of burden for Joy, treated like garbage no matter how hard he tried to smile through the pain. Every lash, every humiliation he endured with a smile, like a fool trapped in a cage of shame. Then another vision appeared. He was being torn apart by hellhounds, sharing his flesh piece by piece. He knew that would have been his tragic fate if he hadn't met Yuri and Ursula. All his insecurities took form, a fragile shadow of his former self whispering that no matter how hard he tried, his true nature would never change. He awoke from the nightmare with a blood-curdling scream, finding Ursula sitting by his bedside. She told him he had been asleep a long time. Yuri and Pina were deeply worried about him. Speaking of the two girls, he asked Ursula where they were. She told him they had gone shopping, but that only made him more anxious. She didn't think it was safe for them to be out without protection. Ursula reassured him that she was tracking their location in real time and could rush to their aid if anything happened. Now, she advised him to rest a bit more since she could tell he had a rough dream. Then he shared his nightmare with her, realizing that if he hadn't met Ursula and Yuria, if Yuri hadn't persuaded Ursula to help, he'd probably be a feast for monsters by now. Everything he had was luck, and deep down, he still saw himself as a useless appraiser. Meanwhile, he was still stunned by Ekina's offer. He asked if she was really serious about helping him get revenge. Ekina then told him about the Spirit Eye. She explained the only reason he was strong now was because he had been granted the Spirit Eye, so he didn't even need to try to be powerful. Finally, he understood what had happened and felt it was unfair that a nobody like him could surpass someone else just by receiving a spirit eye. That's when Echina made an offer he couldn't refuse. She asked if he wanted her to grant him a spirit eye too. The moment he heard this, Joy jumped up eagerly and accepted. Since Joy agreed to receive the spirit eye, Echina conjured an eye in her hand and shoved it directly into Joy's forehead. He endured excruciating pain as his body transformed instantly. When the transformation finished, Joy had become a hideous monster with glowing red eyes, but he was a monster with immense strength, and he was completely satisfied with the result. He leapt into the air to test his new power. His body felt much lighter than before, so he began to fly with effortless grace, a storm unleashed ready to face whatever challenges awaited him next. Joy raced across the rooftops, testing just how swift he had become, but in that fleeting moment, his eyes caught Jolene strolling with her new boyfriend. Betrayed by her, Joy's heart still simmered with bitter anger at being abandoned. Without hesitation, he leapt down and tore the poor man's head off, biting into it as he taunted Jolene, mocking her, asking who she would now sacrifice herself to for protection. Through the twisted voice, Jolene recognized the monster as none other than Joy. Desperation gripped her as she begged for mercy, terrified of death, yet Joy swallowed her head without a flicker of remorse. Meanwhile, across the town, Bina and Yuri were walking together when a sudden roar shattered the calm, sending everyone into a frantic escape from a rampaging beast. Amid the chaos, Yuri spotted a wounded boy and rushed to heal him. Once restored, she urged him to flee immediately, but she refused to leave until every injured soul was tended to. Back in the city, Joy reveled in the destruction, while Echina watched with dark delight. Yet Echina knew the time had come for Joy to focus on the real mission. She commanded him to hunt down the nearby spirits, for if he killed them, they would lose their power and revert to mere mortals. Joy liked the idea, and hurried to attack the closest spirit, landing silently behind Yuri. Just as he raised his fist to strike, Bina stepped in at the last second, raising a magical barrier that absorbed Joy's blow and whisking Yuri away to safety. Joy slammed against the barrier, trying to break it, but all his efforts were in vain. Echina explained that such shields were impervious to ordinary physical attacks, and gifted him with a special power anti-spirit magic enabling him to shatter these defenses. Gathering his energy, Joy unleashed this newfound strength, clawing through the barrier effortlessly. He soared into the sky, chasing after Yuri and Bina. Quickly locating them, he dove down, ready to strike once more. Bina attempted another shield, but this time Joy tore through it with ease. Shocked and defenseless, Bina felt a surge of dread. Despite her fear, Yuri stood firm, shielding her sister with her own body. The monster's grasp tightened around Yuri's chest. Just as Joy prepared to deliver the fatal blow, a figure appeared, striking the monster and forcing it to release Yuri. The rescuer, Ursula, apologized for arriving late but urged everyone to retreat inside, warning the dangers outside. He tried to assess the monster but found no trace of its essence, likely concealed by a powerful spell. Such a veil could only be cast by a high-level entity. Ursula pondered who could be orchestrating this chaos. The monster lunged at Ursula, who deftly blocked and slammed it against a wall. When the creature recovered, Ursula raised a shield to block its next attack. But like with Bina, the monster shattered the barrier and dealt a harsh blow, wounding Ursula. Then the beast taunted him, its voice revealing a shocking truth. Ursula realized this monster was none other than Joy himself. With a confident grin, Joy confirmed and claimed he too had received a blessing from a spirit, making him as strong as Ursula now. Confused, Ursula wondered how Joy could have gained such favor. But as his guard slipped, Joy smashed him against the wall with a brutal punch and relentlessly attacked. Ursula dodged with bursts of speed, keeping his distance. Ursula's companion, Ursula, questioned why he wasn't attacking back. Ursula explained that despite the monstrous form, Joy was still human, and he refused to kill him, and even a bitter one like Joy. Suddenly, tentacles erupted from the ground beneath Ursula, forcing him to leap onto a nearby rooftop. Joy chased after him, still incredulous at the destructive power he'd been granted and, even more so, at Ursula's equal might. Joy found it strange that Ursula wielded such power without selfish ambition. While Joy sought revenge against those who scorned him, he was baffled that Ursula chose a different path, calling him foolish. Joy sneered that Ursula was a useless assessor, pretending to be virtuous, secretly harboring thoughts of tearing Joy apart for past humiliations. Ursula tried to deny it, but his shadow whispered the painful truth. For years, he'd been mocked for his profession, told he and Joy were both worthless scum willing to do anything to survive, even if it meant swallowing pride. No matter how strong he became, deep inside, he still felt like garbage. Joy's words manipulated him, convincing him that they were right. Just then, Yuri burst out, shouting that Joy's accusations were lies, and that Ursula was the best husband she'd ever known if he didn't realize it. Ursula added that he had grown so much not just in power but in heart. No matter how great his strength, he chose to use it to help those in need, never harming the weak as Joy had. His kindness and courage were not gifts from Yuri, they were part of who he was. Yuri's own life had changed for the better since meeting him on that fateful day. Joy scoffed at the sappy words, mocking Ursula as a weakling clinging to spirit power. But this time, those words no longer cut through him. Ursula admitted that the only reason he was strong now was because Yuri and Ursula had supported him, and that was the truth. With their faith in him, he vowed to live up to their expectations. As he spoke, energy surged through his body, banishing the dark shadow clouding his mind. At last he became a true spirit protector, able to wield his spirit power fully. That meant Joy was no match for him. When Joy tried to strike, Ursula read the attack effortlessly and countered with a decisive blow, turning the tide. In that moment, the battle was no longer just a clash of power, it was a testament to the strength born from trust, courage, and the unbreakable bonds between them. If you've ever felt torn between darkness and light, remember Ursula's journey, how, even in the face of betrayal and despair, the heart's true power can shine through. Anime isn't just entertainment, it's a sanctuary where wounds find healing and courage is born anew. And if you were in Ursula's shoes, would you choose forgiveness or revenge? Would you let your past define you, or rise above it with the support of those who believe in you? Thanks for sharing this emotional journey with me. Remember, even the smallest light can guide us through the darkest night. He aimed at Joy's stomach, sending the beast flying 100 meters away. Joy couldn't believe Itho could he counterattack so easily. Now, he was approaching with that familiar look of pity. Refusing to be underestimated, Joy stood up and tried to strike again, but instead of blocking, he simply raised a barrier and waited calmly. Joy thought the shield would be useless, just like before, but then, a twist. His attack rebounded right back at him, a cruel mirror to his effort. It seemed the blessing Joy received was only 10% of the spirit's power, while the spirit wielded its full strength, making Joy nothing but a shrimp in the fight. Frustrated, Joy screamed, begging Ekina to grant him more power. Amused by his act, Aina granted him a surge of strength, transforming him further and uglier. Then, he charged once more, but this time, the spirit was ready to end it. Raising his sword, he unleashed a purifying strike that obliterated Joy's spirit eye. After all the chaos, Joy reverted to human form, seeing the spirit standing before him with gentle eyes and an outstretched hand. Joy hated how the spirit always acted noble, always ready to help even someone as weak as him. But the spirit believed there was nothing wrong with wanting to help others. Even if weak, the spirit had changed to become who he was today, and he believed Joy could do the same. All Joy needed was to grasp the hand offered. Finally, those words touched Joy, and he took the spirit's hand. But Joy had already severed the heads of 2 people and destroyed the city, so he would face consequences for a long time. And felt pity for Joy, knowing someone had exploited his emotions to grant him spirit power. But what could that mysterious spirit gain from all this? That night, Ekina returned to the city and picked up the shattered spirit eye, which had recorded the entire battle. This meant she had gathered all the combat data of the spirit. Everything was unfolding exactly as she planned, except the spirit was still alive. That was because he infused Yuri's purifying power into his final strike, destroying Joy's monstrous form but sparing his life. It was risky since Joy might reveal their meeting. So, she sealed his memories. No way could he interfere with the plan to resurrect the Demon King Micterin. Later, as the spirit sipped a fine cup of tea, Yuri appeared, her fiery form filled with worry and a surprising request. She wanted him to kiss her. Frozen and sweating, he asked if she was joking, because honestly, that would be a dream come true. Yuri insisted she was serious. Suddenly, the 3 elders, Ursula among them, appeared behind him. Ursula grumbled that she didn't like him stealing her daughter's first kiss, but the kiss was a necessary ritual between protector and spirit. So, though reluctant, he had to bite the bullet, though secretly thrilled. Until now, their bond was unstable, and Yuri had borne most of the burden to keep him safe. Now that he was an official protector, this ritual was compulsory to strengthen their connection. So, he had no choice but to kiss Yuri. Turning toward her to act, he caught Kurahim and Pina staring at the scene, telling him to relax and pretend they weren't there. But he just couldn't go through with it. Such awkward moments usually wouldn't happen in front of other Sunless. It's in a private room. Ursula immediately steps in to protect him, asking Pina and Kurahim to wait outside, giving them some privacy. Clearly, he needs a serious moment to calm his mind before the kiss. Pina wonders how Ursula can stay so calm with a stranger about to kiss her daughter. Ursula, though slightly irritated, assures it's fine because, after all, he's not really a stranger. But with a sharp glare, she warns him. If he dares to do anything more than a kiss, she'll tear him apart. Everyone then leaves the room, leaving only him and Yuri alone. Yuri eagerly puckers up, ready for a passionate kiss. He leans in, but at the crucial moment, he clumsily trips and falls. Instead of a fiery kiss, he ends up planting a gentle kiss on her forehead. Technically, it still counts as a kiss, so his eyes get upgraded once more, granting him 100% blessing from the spirit. Honestly, the hero is adorably clueless, but Yuri is quite happy nonetheless. Meanwhile, Ekina arrives at the Demon Lord's castle to meet Fanko, the bird noble, to give him a vital mission, to eliminate a certain kid. Fanko doesn't mind killing a mere human, but he's puzzled why he was assigned to kill such a trivial monkey. Ekina explains that, although he looks ordinary, he's strong enough to defeat monsters like the Bimos, the demon dragons. Fanko isn't impressed he's capable of that too, but since trust is placed in him, he agrees and opens a portal to the human world. Fanko's power is called Windstorm, allowing him to fly at supersonic speeds, making him nearly invisible to the naked eye. Even among demon nobles, his speed is unmatched, unrivaled. Approaching the hero's location, he sees him stepping onto the balcony and stops to introduce himself. But he's cut off because the hero doesn't want to deal with a pesky bird during the sacred couple's hour. He asks Fanko to come back early morning after he's done. Fanko feels deeply insulted and, in a flash, lunges at him with claws aimed to scratch his handsome face. But the hero isn't just anyone. He slaps Fanko away with a strike that sends him flying skyward. Fanko can't believe this is happening, unable to accept that the hero easily blocked his supersonic attack. Not stopping there, the hero swiftly chases him, unleashing a powerful magic bullet that knocks Fanko down into the forest. By the time Fanko hits the ground, he's already dead. The hero casually assesses Fanko's windstorm ability as he prepares to return to bed, but the commotion has awakened others. Apologizing for disturbing their sleep, they curiously ask what happened. Seeing the fallen bird demon, Pina jokes that if he's strong enough to handle that without Ursula's help, he might even be stronger than her. To save face, Ursula cracks her knuckles and adjusts his bones, reasserting her authority. The next day, he visits the castle where Princess Claudia is surprised to see him. He rarely comes here. Curious, she asks his purpose. He says he hopes to explore the castle's forbidden library, filled with information he can't find anywhere else, especially about the tree spirits. Usually reserved for the royal family, but since the king gifted him a royal watch as his pass, he's allowed inside. Claudia leads him to the library's main entrance, but can go no further. Entry requires permission from both the king and the librarian. Since he already has the king's approval, he wonders how he'll get the librarian's consent, someone he's never met. Claudia explains the process is simple. Without the librarian's blessing, no one enters. Though he doesn't fully grasp the meaning, he decides to step inside and, surprisingly, nothing happens. He guesses the librarian has granted permission. He invites Yuri to join him in searching for useful books, but when Yuri tries to enter, she's stopped by an invisible barrier. Ursula immediately teleports to their side, worried about the sudden loss of connection with him likely caused by the barrier. He asks Ursula if she can teleport past the barrier, but despite trying, she can't reach him because the barrier only allows humans to pass. Non-humans like them can't cross, so he decides to enter the library alone. Once inside, he's stunned by the vast collection of books surrounding him. Suddenly, something falls from above a girl. He rushes over and catches her before she crashes to the ground. Concerned, he asks if she's okay. She thanks him shyly, embarrassed to be caught in his arms. She introduces herself as Alice, and he introduces himself back, asking why she suddenly fell from the sky. Alice explains she was reading a book on the upper floor and accidentally fell because she was too absorbed in her reading. While talking about the book, she pulls out a wand and magically returns it to its place on the shelf. She boasts that she knows the location of every single book in the library by heart, because she is the librarian. Surprised to learn this, he thanks her immediately. She's puzzled why he's so grateful. He explains he's thankful because his access to the library is only possible through her permission as the librarian. Attempt to reach him failed. Barriers only let humans pass, barring spirits like them. So she decided to enter the library alone. The moment he stepped inside, he was stunned by the vast sea of books. Suddenly, something fell from above. Looking closer, he saw a girl plummeting and didn't hesitate to catch her before she hit the ground. He asked if she was all right. She thanked him but blushed, embarrassed at being caught. She introduced herself as Alice. Curious, he asked why she suddenly fell from the sky. Alice explained she was so engrossed reading a book on the upper floor that she lost her footing. She then pulled out her wand, casting a spell to return the book to its shelf. She claimed to know every book's place in the library, since she was the librarian. Surprised, he immediately thanked her. She didn't understand why, but he explained he was grateful because she, the librarian, allowed him access to the sanctuary. Speaking of which, Alice asked why he had come here. He shared that someone dear to him needed help finding her family. Alice understood and offered her support, recognizing the weight of his mission. Using magic, she summoned a book down and told him that it contained secrets about hidden dungeons. She said he could read it to uncover more. Meanwhile, she casually asked how Yuri had been lately, making him wonder how did she even know Yuri's name when he hadn't mentioned anyone important yet. Alice explained she recognized the spirit core in his eye, and the reason she knew it belonged to Yuri was because she too was a World Tree spirit. Following the guidance from the book Alice gave him, he had just completed conquering a dungeon listed inside. Yet, this wasn't the secret dungeon written about in the book, so he began doubting if he had the right volume. He planned to return to the library and ask Alice about it. At that moment, Alice had been watching them all along using her 1,000-mile gaze. But Akahan, Alice's guardian, questioned why she hadn't handed over the correct book about the secret dungeon. Though Alice longed to reunite with her siblings, just by telling him the true location of the dungeon, everything would be so much easier for her to see Yuri and Pina again. But because, being deeply introverted, Alice feared entanglement with the outside world. Lacking the fighting strength of her sisters, all she could do was observe from afar with her distant gaze. On top of that, the outside world was overrun by humans, and Alice despised them. They were the ones who, in a way, had slain her eldest sister, Ekina. However, Akahan pointed out that he didn't seem like a bad person. Back when they first met him and he learned Alice was a World Tree spirit, he was simply astonished. When Akahan stepped forward, he asked if she was Alice's guardian. Confirming this, Akahan expressed pleasure in meeting him, and the two shared a friendly handshake. Akahan thanked him for treating his daughter kindly, as Alice had become much happier since meeting him. Yet, sweat dripped down his brow as her expression hardly reflected happiness. Because Alice was a World Tree spirit, he told her that Yuri and Pina were waiting outside. They were eager for the three to reunite. But unfortunately, Akahan warned him that things weren't so simple. Though he could enter through the castle gate, this library was actually inside a completely different, secret dungeon. This special gate connected the castle to the library but allowed only humans to pass through. Moreover, a powerful spell safeguarded it, ensuring only those approved by the king and Alice could enter. This place held the kingdom's most precious knowledge, so in exchange for using the World Tree's power to protect it, Akahan and Alice were allowed to live there and read as many books as they wished. But if Alice or Yuri crossed the gate, it would break the ancient vow that had preserved this place for centuries. So, if he wanted to reunite with Alice, he'd have to find the secret dungeon and enter through its main entrance. Hearing this, he learned he had to pass through the dungeon's true main gate, though he wondered if it wouldn't be quicker just to bring Alice outside with him. However, Akahan doubted it would be that easy. Alice was extremely fragile and wouldn't survive long in the harsh dungeon environment. Besides, it seemed she didn't want to leave. It was clear that while Alice wished to see Yuri and Pina again, she was too afraid to face the outside world. Understanding her feelings, he told her that if she took the first step, he would take the remaining 99 to safely escort her out. Yet, she probably wouldn't trust him so soon after they'd just met. So he resolved to do his best to find that dungeon and then bring Yuri and Pina to Alice. Returning to the present moment, Akahan was gently preparing a potion for little Alice, while telling her it was perfectly fine if she chose to stay here and wait until he found her. More than anything, as her guardian, Akahan knew Alice had feelings for him, and in his role like a mother, he wanted Alice to be honest with herself. Books were helpful, sure, but some lessons, those deep, soul-stirring ones, Alice could only learn by living them. He trusted that Alice would embrace this fresh, new experience, and if anything went wrong, little Alice could always return to this library whenever she wished. Soon after, he hurried to the library to ask about the secret dungeon, but before he could say a word, Akahan pushed Alice forward to take the lead. Blushing shyly, Alice stepped up to him and confessed that she trusted him, and she wanted to explore the outside world together. Hearing this warmed his heart. So he lifted Alice high and leapt out of the library, ready for them to escape the dungeon side by side. Before they left, Akahan handed him Alice's spirit core because she couldn't leave this place without it. With that, he, Alice, and Akahan began their journey to conquer the secret dungeon. But Akahan wasn't joking when he said Alice was truly fragile. A true bookworm to the core, she was utterly exhausted after only a few steps. They had to keep moving, so they decided he would carry Alice on his back while he cleared the dungeon ahead. Not long after, they faced their first boss battle, a fearsome samurai monster. He struggled because the samurai's swordsmanship far outmatched his own. Realizing he had no chance to win a sword duel, he threw away his sword. Honoring the way of the warrior, the samurai followed suit. But then, he charged forward and delivered a fierce kick to the samurai's face, sending him to his final rest. Even as the samurai fell, he performed the ancient ritual, beginning to assess the monster's abilities. While he did this, Alice approached and gently touched his face, surprising him. Akahan explained that Alice was simply worried he might have been hurt in the fight. He reassured her she didn't need to worry, was still bursting with energy. Soon, they reached the dungeon's exit, and once free, Alice would be reunited with her sisters. Yet, Alice didn't look happy at all. He couldn't understand why, so Akahan explained that Alice was sad because once they left the dungeon, he wouldn't carry her anymore. But, if that was all, he said he could carry her any time she wanted Eve, after they returned home. Eventually, he brought Alice back to the mansion. Yuri was thrilled to see Alice and tried to hug her tightly. But Alice disliked such close embraces, only it was him instead. Yuri then hugged him and thanked him for bringing Alice safely. Yet Alice felt a bit uneasy seeing Yuri getting so close to him. Noticing this, Pina decided to tease her a bit. She wrapped her arms around him too and joked that if Alice didn't hurry up, there'd be no room left for her. Without hesitation, Alice clung tightly to his arm, seeking warmth. Pina teased her again, asking why she held him so tightly. But he wasn't embarrassed at all, in fact. He defended Alice, telling Pina to stop teasing her. Putting jokes aside, his calm reaction to Pina's teasing made her think he might truly love Alice. And so, everyone began their playful interrogation, welcoming him warmly. He tried to escape by running into the steam room, but the sisters eagerly followed, making sure he couldn't rest. Now he had no peace. They wouldn't let him leave until he answered all their questions. Fortunately, Ursula finally spoke up, telling them to stop crowding him like that it wasn't fair. But even then, he wasn't out of trouble. Surrounded by playful attacks and defenses from all sides, Pina casually sat on his lap, pushing him to keep his composure and not reveal the man beneath. Seeing this, Pina grew even more amused, and teased him further, asking if her soft body excited him more. And indeed, he was struggling to hold back his feelings, so he excused himself from the steam room to relieve the pressure. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed Alice looking dizzy, and told her she should also leave the steam room if the heat became too much. However, Alice refused. She wanted to stay with everyone, especially him, because she had decided to be by his side forever. That was her way of confessing her feelings, though it seemed he didn't quite catch the message. At that moment, he remembered he hadn't yet absorbed Alice's spirit core, and asked Ursula if she could help him with it. Ursula agreed. After Ursula finished handling Alice's core, Alice approached him with something to say, but fate had other plans. She accidentally tripped. Trying to steady herself, she grabbed hold of a very sensitive spot, unintentionally pulling down his pants in front of everyone. Now everyone had a full view of his impressively large manhood. Even Kurahim found it funny but was still impressed by the needle he carried. A little later, he sat in the living room, pondering which dungeon to explore next. Suddenly, Megan and Jasper dropped down from above right before him. They informed him that he'd received a request from the king. Jasper then asked if he was familiar with fighting demons. He recalled his recent battle with a demon and asked what Jasper meant. Jasper and Megan explained that demons had once driven humans out of their world, but a dimensional barrier had been erected to block their advance. Unfortunately, demons had been spotted near the Doe Red territory, so his mission was to go there and eliminate the troublesome demons. Usually, such tasks were given to ordinary adventurers, but humans had little hope against demons. Out of nowhere, a messenger descended from the sky right before him. They informed him that he had received a royal summons. Jasper then asked if he was familiar with battling demons. He recalled having fought a demon not long ago, and asked Jasper what he meant. Jasper and Megan continued to explain that demons once drove humanity out of their own world, but a dimensional wall was erected to block their invasion. Unfortunately, demons had recently been spotted near the Doizik territory, so his mission was to go there and eliminate the troublesome demons. Usually, such tasks were assigned to ordinary adventurers, but how could ordinary people stand a chance against demons? Therefore, he wasn't obligated to accept this mission. Yet, with the heart of a hero, he felt compelled to help those suffering. He promised to wipe out the demons terrorizing the Doishich lands. Meanwhile, within the Doishich territory, a small group of villagers was venturing into the forest with a purpose. Among them were a man and his adorable young daughter. Mia cheerfully asked her father how much farther they had to go, her stomach rumbling with hunger. Her father comforted her, assuring they wouldn't have to walk much longer. Eventually, the group reached ancient stone ruins deep in the woods. Soon, the ground began to tremble, and for some unknown reason, everyone bowed down low. It was the Hydra, the monstrous guardian of their village, arriving. Confused, Mia asked what a Hydra was. Her father explained it was a giant serpent, revered as the village's divine protector. Suddenly, a purple slime-covered beast emerged from the forest, seemingly waiting for something. One of the villagers urged Mia's father to quickly perform the sacrificial ritual. Trembling and sorrowful, he hesitated but told Mia to approach the Hydra. Without hesitation, innocent Mia agreed. Yet, she saw her father trembling and tried to comfort him before going. She understood she was about to be sacrificed and knew they had no other choice if the village was to survive. With tear-filled eyes, she begged her father to stay strong when she was gone. Then, she ran to the Hydra and spoke to it, saying she had, but at the final moment, her father's heart broke. Couldn't bear to lose her. He dashed forward and embraced Mia, refusing to let go. The villagers grew restless. They had agreed that this month's sacrifice would be the village's chosen victim. Refusing to accept this, Mia's father stepped up and volunteered himself as the offering, determined to save his daughter's life. Yet the Hydra revealed it despised the taste of men. Long ago, it had struck a grim bargain with the villagers. Every month, a girl must be sacrificed, or else the village would face destruction. They had broken that pact. The monstrous Hydra declared it would punish them, spewing a deadly toxin that sent the villagers writhing in agonizing pain upon the ground. Preparing to devour Mia alive, the Hydra's jaws opened wide until a mysterious figure appeared, raising a magical shield to block the attack. Looking up, Mia saw him standing firm between her and death. She thought to herself, this must be a god sent to save her. As he faced off against the Hydra, a companion named Ursula warned him this was an SS-rank beast, capable of unleashing a poison so potent it could fell any foe. Ursula explained that the purple slime coating the Hydra was a deadly toxin, a shield against nearly all physical damage. Grateful for the warning, the hero knew he had to prioritize saving the poisoned villagers before confronting the beast. He called upon Yuri, whose healing powers had grown stronger after many trials, to cure everyone suffering from the lethal venom. The Hydra was stunned. Never had it seen anyone neutralize its poison with just a glance. Thanks to the countless blessings from the Spirit Eye, Yuri's healing abilities had reached new heights. After tending to the villagers, the hero told them he would handle the Hydra and urged them to retreat. Drawing his sword, he struck in an instant, slicing the monster into pieces with a force that left the villagers gasping in awe. Among the stunned crowd, one finally recognized him, the famed Dragon Slayer from the capital. They all rushed forward, pouring their gratitude for saving their lives. But he told them not to worry, he would stay to protect this land. And on that note, he asked if he could meet the Lord of the region. Yet the moment he mentioned the Lord, the cheerful atmosphere shattered. Though they thanked him again for saving them, surely without him, they'd all have perished. They doubted he could do anything more for their village. Silent and uneasy, they turned their backs and returned home, leaving the hero puzzled by their cold response. But as they were leaving, little Mia turned back and told Ren how deeply grateful she was to the god in her heart who came and saved her. Ren told the girl he wasn't some mighty god, but when it came to protecting her smile, even a deity couldn't stand in his way. Then he told Mia to hurry home to her father, while he would face the Lord alone. And so Ren set off. Ren finally found the Lord's mansion, but Pina sensed something was off about the place. Though the nearby village was in ruins, this mansion stood proud and imposing. She wasn't sure what dangers lurked within, so she urged all the girls to stay back, safe under her watchful eye. Ren stepped through the front door and introduced himself as an adventurer sent by the guild. At that moment, the current Lord Negan appeared to greet him. Negan invited Ren to sit and try some homemade cake. Ren took a bite, but it was overwhelmingly salty. Curious, Negan asked for his honest opinion on his baking skills, hoping not to offend. Ren fibbed, saying it was delicious despite the awful taste. But when Negan tasted it himself, he realized Ren was lying. Negan had accidentally used salt instead of sugar, and apologized for forcing Ren to try such a disaster. Setting that aside, Ren dove straight into the heart of his visit, reports of demons invading Negan's territory. Calmly, Negan denied any demons were present, suggesting villagers might have mistaken a common monster for a demon. Ren sensed Negan was out of touch with his land's reality. Ren revealed that he had indeed encountered and slain a demon on his way here. Upon hearing this, Negan panicked. He was the one who had summoned Hydra to protect the village. The village had been repeatedly attacked by monsters and was on the brink of destruction, if not for Hydra's intervention. Negan explained he had made a pact with Hydra for their safety. Ren snapped back that Hydra demanded human sacrifices, and he couldn't stand idly by while innocent people were slaughtered. But Negan reasoned his duty was to protect the land his father left behind. If sacrificing one life saved hundreds, he would not rule out such measures. Besides, Ren couldn't guard the village forever, and not everyone was strong enough to defend themselves. With nothing more to say, Negan left, and Ren departed the mansion. As Ren walked away, he questioned if he had done wrong by killing Hydra without knowing the whole story. Yet no matter how much Hydra protected the village from monsters, Ren couldn't accept human sacrifice as the price. Yuri, sensing Ren's moral struggle, appeared to comfort him. She didn't fully grasp human ethical complexity, but she was sure Ren should follow the path he believed was right. Inside the mansion, Negan approached a mirror at the back of the room, horrified by his reflection. With Hydra slain, they needed a new protector for the village. A dark shadow spoke to Negan, urging calm and promising an easy replacement, but it warned of a bigger problem first. Ren. The shadow tempted Negan by saying no normal person could slay an SS-rank monster like Hydra, implying Ren was a demon who would destroy the land unless Negan eliminated him. Though not evil, Negan was incredibly gullible and easily manipulated. After the shadow's persuasive whispers, Negan became convinced that killing Ren was the only way to solve the problem and keep the village safe. He even thanked the sinister shadow for its help before setting out to carry out his dark mission. As Negan left, the shadow revealed its true plan to one day possess Negan's body. Meanwhile, Ren arrived at the village to investigate the monster situation firsthand. What he found was heartbreaking. The village's defenses were a crumbling joke. Walls had gaping holes, no guards stood watch, and monsters could strike whenever they pleased. Confused by how things had decayed so badly, Ren approached a girl working nearby and asked her about the village and Lord Negan. At the mere mention of Negan, the girl panicked and fled, avoiding any talk about him. Every villager reacted the same way when questioned, making Ren suspect they all feared their lord deeply. Eventually, Ren found a man he had saved before and asked to speak with him. The man recognized Ren and was willing to answer questions, though he doubted it would help much. He explained that many adventurers and soldiers had been sent here by the guild, but after witnessing the village's dire state, they all abandoned it. He didn't blame them, since the village lay deep within monster territory. After Ren defeated Hydra, monsters ravaged the fields and destroyed the villagers' crops, leaving them trapped between death by monsters or starvation. The man told Ren to go home. There was nothing he could do. But Ren, driven by kindness, refused to abandon the villagers. Using earth magic, he healed the ravaged fields and combined it with seed magic to grow food for the people. Then he moved to the city walls and reinforced them with earth magic, building a sturdier barrier to block monsters from entering by land. Turning back to the man, Ren urged him not to lose hope. He was ready to answer any questions she had, but he doubted it would make any difference. He explained that the guild had sent many adventurers and soldiers here before, yet, after witnessing the village's desolation, they all turned their backs and abandoned them. Still, he didn't blame them. This village was a forsaken land, buried deep within monster territory. So right after she defeated the Hydra, monsters attacked the fields, destroying the villagers' harvest. Now, the entire village faced a cruel choice: die by monsters or starve. He urged her to return home, saying she couldn't save this village alone, but with a heart full of kindness, she refused to abandon them. She used earth magic to heal the ravaged fields and combined it with seed magic to grow food for the villagers. Then she walked to the city walls and summoned earth magic to build a sturdier, taller barrier. At least this would stop monsters from invading by land. Turning to the man, she told him not to give up. As long as he and the survivors lived, hope remained. She offered her help, even though she was the one who came to aid. The man suddenly burst into laughter. It was the second time someone begged him to help others. The first was the region's original Lord Negan's father. He remembered that man fondly, kind, brave. But since Negan took power, things had only worsened. When Non rose to power, the Hydra appeared, and the defense budget vanished. Naturally, people wanted to protest Negan, but all who dared to complain at the manor never returned. So the villagers lost hope and accepted their fate. Yet, thanks to her, the man felt for the first time that maybe things could get better. She promised to do everything in her power to make things right. But moments later, she witnessed a terrifying sight. A massive army of monsters was storming toward the village. No matter what, she swore no villager would get hurt. Clearly, Negan was behind this. Now, she had to face the great monster uprising, because the horde was coming at a terrifying speed. She flew like a bird to the wall for a better view, and horror gripped her as she realized the monsters outnumbered her worst fears. Yuri asked what she planned to do in this crisis. Even with the new walls, the village couldn't withstand this onslaught. Once again, he vowed with all his heart to do everything in his power to ensure peace. But just moments later, a dreadful sight unfolded: a massive army of monstrous beasts charging straight toward the village. Yet no matter what, he swore he would not let a single villager fall. It was clear Negan was the mastermind behind this chaos. Now, he had no choice but to confront this overwhelming uprising. Watching the monster horde charge forward, every villager's heart sank in dread. But he had promised to protect every smile in the village, and nothing could stop him from keeping that vow. He told Yuri to stay safe within his sight, then launched himself skyward like a superhero to gain the advantage of a better vantage point. Now with a panoramic view, he faced the endless sea of beasts below. He unleashed a colossal magical energy blast upon the horde. Though it felled many, countless monsters still survived. The beasts, attempting to emulate his flight, leaped into the air to attack him. But with his unique skills, he countered their assault, slicing them into pieces one by one. He unleashed every technique at his disposal to take down as many as he could. When he cleared a wide swath of land, the villagers watched in awe at what he'd just accomplished. But Pina warned him, if he kept fighting this way, exhaustion would soon catch up, risking his very life. He understood this, but had no choice. He couldn't abandon the village, especially with the beasts still closing in. Drawing his sword, he prepared for a sweeping blade strike. But before that, he needed to ensure this single attack would wipe out every last monster. So he began expanding the range of his strike. As its reach grew wider and wider, Ursula voiced her concern: if he kept pushing his limits like this, survival would be nearly impossible under such relentless pressure. He knew the risks he faced, But no matter what happened to his body, he wouldn't abandon the villagers to run away. When the beasts closed in and launched a combined assault, he unleashed his sweeping sword, slash-cutting through the monsters cleanly. As the battle subsided, he barely managed to stand on shaking legs. Seconds later, he collapsed, gasping for breath. Yuri rushed over, immediately healing his battered body. Ursula stepped forward, expressing deep admiration for his strength and willpower. His body had been pushed beyond limits. Even Yuri's healing magic struggled to keep up. Yet he still managed to slay every last beast. Perhaps even she couldn't have done the same. Finally regaining consciousness, he thanked Yuri for her healing and asked if the villagers were safe. At that moment, Mia ran to him, wrapping him in an embrace. The villagers thanked him. This was the second time he had saved them from the jaws of death. One villager then asked the others if they truly wanted to keep living like this. While he had risked his life once more, he risked his life to protect them. But was all they could do just sigh helplessly and accept their fate? Witnessing such fierce determination to defend their lives, the man seemed to draw newfound strength to rise and protect not only himself, but the entire village. It was heartening to see hope rekindled in everyone's eyes, reminding him of the moment he first met Yuri. He felt a surge of happiness, thinking he had positively changed many lives, just as Yuri had changed his. And now, more than ever, he was certain he wanted to spend the rest of his life by Yuri's side. The villagers overheard his heartfelt words like a romantic confession and soon began teasing him, their cheeks flushing red with embarrassment. They told him not to be shy, to do as he pleased and pretend they didn't even exist. Since he fought for them like a lord defending his realm, from now on they'd trust no one but him, not Negan. But just as Negan's name was mentioned, he appeared looming behind and asked what everyone was talking about. Though the villagers still feared him a little, they stood firm and told Negan they would no longer obey a useless lord like him. Negan had abandoned them to die, while this man fought without reason to protect them. Negan sneered, calling the villagers fools, and claimed they'd been deceived by a demon impersonator. He argued that no ordinary human could possess the strength to slay monsters and even a hydra. Negan insisted this was all part of a plot by the man to seize control of their territory. He promised they need not worry because he would throw open his arms to save them. But the villagers looked at Negan like a clown. They knew the man's true identity and didn't understand what Negan was babbling about. Even if he was a demon, they'd rather side with him than Negan, who was 100 times worse. Negan couldn't believe they'd choose this man over him, after all his efforts to protect the Vic territory. But after Negan's cruel acts, rounding up villagers for sacrifice, they no longer trusted his empty words about protection when he was ready to sacrifice innocent lives. What the villagers needed was a lord willing to stand and fight alongside them to defend their home and not a coward. Hearing this, Negan was reminded of his father's image from the past, and suddenly a sharp pain shot through his body. He cried out, calling on the Dark One for help, confused by the villagers' disbelief in his good intentions. Now seen as a villain, Negan pulled out a pocket mirror and asked the Dark One for guidance. The man noticed the mirror and grew suspicious, testing it, but despite his efforts, he couldn't extract any information. A powerful concealment spell hid its secrets. He warned Negan to drop the mirror immediately, but it was too late. The darkness began its final phase. Dark energy swirled around Negan, engulfing him in a blood-red aura belonging to the Dark One. Again, Negan sought advice from the Dark One on how to handle the situation. The sinister voice told him he only needed to kill everyone. Though foolish, Negan realized this was a terrible idea. But the Dark One pressed on, insisting that disobedient villagers were expendable, and urged Negan to slaughter them as he once killed his own father. Shaken, Negan protested he was not the man who killed his father. His father had died of illness. Yet hearing this only made the Dark One laugh, unable to believe Negan's naive belief. Still, since the plan unfolded perfectly, the Dark One decided to reveal the truth about Negan's father. It all began long ago. When Negan was young, despite being a lord, his father often helped with the village's fields, and Negan would bring him food. Villagers expressed gratitude for his father's humble kindness, which he never saw as a big deal. Negan admired his father's humility. No wonder everyone loved him. But Negan himself was different. Clumsy and frail, villagers viewed him with suspicion. His father told him to play with other children while he worked, so Negan tried to make friends. Yet when he asked to join their games, the children ran away, scared of catching the terminal illness they'd heard Negan had. Left alone, Negan stood wondering why no one wanted to play with him. Lonely and rejected, he wandered into a dark alley and wept bitterly. It was then he met the Dark Lord, the shadowy figure, who had orchestrated everything from the start. The Dark One promised friendship and unwavering support, urging Negan not to strive to be a perfect version of his father, but to be himself. Desperate for companionship, Negan accepted the Dark One as a friend, brushing aside suspicions about how he'd appeared from nowhere. From then on, the Dark One treated Negan like a true friend, earning his trust. But one day, while walking down a corridor, Negan saw his father looking fatigued, and approached to check on him. His father thanked him but said he was just feeling a little unwell from a mild illness. From then on, Darkness treated Negan like a true friend, earning his trust. But one day, as Negan strolled down a corridor, he noticed his father looking weary. He approached with concern. Negan's father thanked him but said it was just a minor ailment making him feel weak. Still, Negan worried deeply and asked Darkness if there was anything he could do to help his father recover. Darkness immediately saw his chance and told Negan about a herb growing in the forest. He urged Negan to check a nearby book for more information. Flipping through the pages, Negan found a section on detoxifying herbs. Excited, Negan believed this herb could heal his father. Meanwhile, Darkness smiled a wicked smile, hidden in the shadows. Negan gathered some of the herb and brewed tea for his father, cheerfully claiming it would ease fatigue, calm the mind, and boost vitality. Like any loving father, he trusted his son implicitly and drank it without suspicion. He even patted Negan's head, praising the tea's taste and thanking his son for his thoughtfulness. He was sure one day Negan would become a kind-hearted lord. Time passed, yet his father's condition worsened despite drinking the daily health tea. One morning when Negan brought him the usual cup, he found his beloved father had died suddenly. Devastated by his father's death, Negan's only confidant was Darkness. He shared everything with this shadowy companion first. With his father gone, Negan was destined to inherit the Vic territory. But he doubted he could rule as well as his father had. Darkness mocked him, calling him a naive child who would only ruin the domain if left in charge. He promised to show Negan the best way to become a good lord, and he swore he wouldn't trick Negan into sacrificing his people without reason. At that moment, Negan trusted Darkness completely. Seeing this blind faith, Darkness paused to sneer, calling Negan a fool behind his back. Back in the present, Darkness finally revealed the brutal truth. Negan was the cause of his father's death. Negan couldn't believe it. He was sure his father had died from illness, and that the herb tea was meant to help him. But Darkness had used magic to alter the descriptions in the plant book Negan read. What he gave his father wasn't a detox herb, it was a deadly poison, a twisted version known as the Sun's Betrayal. Negan was stunned, unable to understand why his so-called friend would do this to him. Darkness just laughed it off as a joke. After all, a demon like him had no interest in a fool like Negan. His original plan was to possess Negan's father's body and use the Lord's name to drag the people into hell. But the old man was too wary, never trusting the voice from the cursed water. Thus, Darkness could never control him. But Negan was different, so desperate for friendship. He believed every word Darkness said. Thanks to Negan's foolishness, Darkness had already sent many souls to the demon world. But the game of innocent prey and ruthless hunter was over. To thank Negan for his unwitting support, Darkness gave him one final gift, the truth. He told Negan he was just an adopted Sonoway, someone as weak as him could share blood with his father. This shattered Negan's spirit into despair. Now mad with grief, Darkness could easily possess his body. The ritual was complete. The demon introduced himself as one of the 5 demon generals, and now Negan was lost to the darkness. The cruel revelation crashed down like a dagger, tearing away the last threads of hope Negan held. The boy who once longed for acceptance was now a puppet in the demon's hands. Darkness's cold smile promised that the nightmare had only just begun. And so, with Negan's soul consumed, a new chapter of darkness and despair was written where trust was shattered, and the line between friend and fiend blurred into oblivion. He had to face that villain. Hey, ask the darkness what it did to Negan. The darkness answered that Negan was still here, but the fool had lost control over his own body. It took a long time to crush Negan's spirit, but after some mind games, Negan would never be able to appear again. Enraged, he confronted the darkness for such cruelty, but the darkness blamed En instead, saying it was En who caused Negan's body to be possessed. After all, if En hadn't appeared, the darkness wouldn't have needed to act this way. It enjoyed toying with Negan and sending villagers to the demon world, but En ruined everything, so the darkness vowed to kill him personally. It knew En wouldn't dare harm it, because if En tried to kill the darkness, Negan would also die. Then the darkness attacked En. En dodged and tried to trap the darkness in a barrier, but the darkness easily shattered it, wielding anti-spiritual magic. Such a simple barrier was nothing to him. En could imprison him if he poured all his strength into the barrier, but the darkness wouldn't give him that chance. Summoning monsters to attack the villagers, the darkness forced En to rush to their rescue. En erected a wall to block the monsters, and urged the villagers to flee quickly, but the darkness had no intention of letting them escape. It summoned more monsters and destroyed the wall, unleashing chaos upon the villagers. Not wanting anyone hurt, En created several clones of himself to protect them. Yet even this wasn't enough to shield everyone. One person was caught by a monster, and while En was distracted, the darkness sneaked in and punched him straight in the face. The darkness rained down a relentless barrage of punches on En. He wanted to fight back but realized it would harm Negan, so he activated his immovable fortress skill to defend himself. The darkness's attacks no longer caused damage, but En couldn't move either. He knew he had to stop the darkness, but fighting back risked hurting Nigan and he refused to let that happen. The darkness mocked En, claiming that killing Nigan was the only way to end everything, but it knew heroes like En would never do that. It was bizarre that En still tried to save Nigan. If he killed Nigan, he could save all the villagers under attack. Yet En rejected that choice. He hated sacrificing one to save many because he wanted to save everyone. En began shouting, trying to awaken Nigan to reclaim his body. The darkness laughed, saying Nigan had closed his heart, so En's words wouldn't reach him. Still, En refused to give up. He stepped forward, taking punch after punch from the darkness, then grabbed its collar and headbutted it while telling Nigan he was here to help. Inside Nigan's mind, he was trapped in a dark, empty room. He wished he had never existed, believing the village would be better off without a weak lord like him. But suddenly, he heard En's voice calling to him. En reminded Nigan that when they met, Nigan said he wanted to protect the Jay territory. And though he might have been tricked into doing wrong, En knew Nigan truly cared about protecting this land. So En asked Nigan to look deep into his heart and remember why he cared so much for this territory. Then Nigan recalled moments with his father caring for this land. Maybe he wanted to be like his father, but that wasn't the only reason. Nigan always admired his father because wherever he went, he was surrounded by. The smiles on the villagers' faces weren't just simple joy. They were the reflection of a leader who truly cared for his land, and a people who, in turn, cared for him. Outside the village, monsters still prowled and attacked, but a man discovered a vital secret. Aiming for their eyes could bring the beasts down. Now they had a fighting chance. This man told the others that Lord Negan was being controlled by a demon and that they needed to help him. Yet, it was understandable why the villagers questioned why they should help Negan after all the trouble he had caused them. The man understood their anger. He felt it too, honestly. But in the end, they chose to fight to protect their home. First, they had to save everyone, then they could figure out how to deal with Negan. Back with Negan, he knew his actions were unforgivably if he was manipulated by darkness. He blamed himself for not realizing it sooner, before all this chaos unfolded. Facing the villagers after everything would be tough, but if he did nothing, he would never move forward. So, Negan stood up and took the first steps to reclaim his body and take responsibility for what he had done. Meanwhile, the darkness, just waking from Negan's headbutt, told him that no matter what he did, he would never truly reach Negan's core. But then the darkness's body stiffened. It turned out Negan was fighting back to regain control of himself. The darkness screamed at him to give up, insisting that no matter what, Negan could never expel it from his body. But Negan didn't care as long as he could defeat this shadow. Drawing a dagger, Negan plunged it into his own heart, ready to die with it. Unable to believe what just happened, En rushed to Negan's side to save him. But Ursula stopped En, saying they couldn't let Negan's sacrifice be in vain. Inside Negan's mind, the darkness cursed him for daring to stab himself, but Negan accepted his fate. Yet before surrendering, he had something to say to the darkness. From the moment they met, Negan had a feeling the darkness wasn't an ordinary illusion. Still, he chose to ignore it, believing it was his friend. Even knowing the darkness was using him, he treated it as a friend. When they first crossed paths, the darkness's kind words and advice had genuinely helped Negan. So, despite everything, Negan wanted to thank it. But the darkness was disgusted by Negan's feelings. It called him a fool and told him if he wanted to die, he should do it himself because the darkness wasn't stupid enough to stay inside a dying body. Then, the darkness left Negan's body and fled, seeking a new host. It set its sights on little Mia, but before it could possess her, on threw his sword straight through the darkness, sending it fleeing. En then rushed to check on Negan, pulling the dagger from his heart and desperately trying to heal him. He tried to convince himself that Negan would be fine. Yuri's healing magic was powerful enough to mend any wound. But Negan's soul had already drifted too far. There was nothing On could do. Just then, Yuri appeared and told En, "Don't give up. No matter what happens, she will make sure Negan comes back." Inside Negan's mind, he stood in darkness, reaching for a hand stretched out toward him. Negan suddenly woke, and both En and Yuri rejoiced to see him alive. But Negan wasn't happy about being revived. He yelled at them for bringing him back because death was the only way he could atone for the chaos he'd brought upon the village. However, On told him that sacrificing his life was not the answer. Even if Negan wanted to give up, En wouldn't allow it. Besides, the villagers didn't want him dead. They might hate Negan for causing the deaths of so many friends and family to demons, but his death wouldn't bring anyone back. That's why they hoped Negan would live and make amends by taking responsibility for his actions. Negan finally understood what he had to do. He thanked the villagers for giving someone as undeserving as him a second chance. Yuri and En were moved that things had finally settled. But Yuri had overused her power and collapsed from exhaustion. En worried and asked if she was okay. She said she was fine, just a little tired, so En carried her to a tree to rest. Everyone took care of Yuri while she rested. Pina was amazed that Yuri pushed herself so hard to save one person. Suddenly, Alice noticed something and pointed at the darkness's form. The evil shadow was still alive. Though now only a small, original shape, it was trying to flee as fast as possible. But before it could get far, Pina trapped it inside a barrier. En came over to see what was happening. Ursula told him the darkness was trying to escape, so En would have to deal with this villain. En had some questions for the darkness. Why were the demons targeting him? And what was their goal? The darkness refused to betray them, but when En threatened to eliminate it, fear took hold. So, the darkness began confessing everything. It told En that an order had been issued to kill him as soon as possible. But just as it was about to reveal the name of the one who gave the command, it exploded. Ursula guessed whoever was behind this had set a suicide spell in case the demon tried to leak sensitive information. That evening, En reported to the villagers that the last demon was finally dead. They thanked him deeply for all his help. Facing down that villain, he had a few burning questions for the shadowy figure. Why were the demons targeting him? And what was their endgame? The shadow swore it wouldn't betray secrets, but when threatened with elimination, fear took hold. So it began to spill the truth. A deadly order had been issued, kill him as soon as possible. But just as the shadow was about to reveal who gave the command, it exploded into nothingness. Ursula guessed that whoever was behind this had placed a deadly, cursony demon trying to leak sensitive info would self-destruct. That evening, the villagers were told the demon was finally defeated, and they thanked him deeply for all his help. But little Mia was sad, knowing this meant he would leave their village. He promised her he'd return soon. Nigon also expressed his gratitude for his protection of the village. Though he felt unworthy of such praise, there was something he wished to ask. Would he continue supporting the Rick territory, even if only a little? The land was under constant monster attack, but with his help, things would be so much better. So, Nigon begged him to keep watching over this place. The villagers assured him that they would fight to protect their homes, but having his support gave them peace of mind. They hoped he could continue to aid them as much as possible. Surprised by this sudden request, he was even more shocked to hear he was being appointed lord, with the king bestowing upon him a noble title as a reward for his noble deeds. Even more astonishing, Nigon had personally requested his title be transferred to him. Nigon had turned himself in and was now imprisoned for his crimes. With him having quelled unrest in the royal capital, exposed the shadowy villain in the Rick territory, and defeated a demon, he truly earned this reward. That's why Nigon entrusted him with control of the Rick lands. He felt honoured but uncertain whether he could live up to the role of lord. Jasper reassured him not to worry about the burden, promising to handle all the paperwork for him. Plus, becoming a noble would open doors to all kinds of connections, making it easier to gather intel on secret dungeons. Hearing this from Jasper, the offer to become a lord didn't sound so bad anymore, so he told the king he accepted. The king was delighted to hear this, and the princess was even happier because now he's a noble, so their marriage no longer breaks royal laws. In the demon realm, rumours spread fast that both Lord Fanko and the Dark Lord were slain by a mere human. Two low-ranking demons started mocking how weak the demon nobility must be to fall to a low-level human, but bad-mouthing nobles inside their own castle, not the smartest move, because soon after, one of those demons lost his head literally. The other was terrified, targeted by Iona, the highest-ranked demon noble. She said she wouldn't kill him, but since her current slave was slacking off, she was considering turning the demon dog into her new plaything. The demon dog trembled in fear, but he was powerless against Iona's overwhelming strength. Yet, after some thought, Iona spared him because she didn't want to deal with dog hair all over herself. Then she walked to Ekina's room, who had a strange expression. Ekina seemed pleased by his power. Iona asked why Ekina cared about a mere human like him, but Ekina pointed out that an ordinary human couldn't just easily defeat Fanko and the Dark Lord. Still reluctant to admit he was special, Iona said she'd personally test him. Ekina was thrilled to hear this, and took the chance to ask Iona for a small favour. She wanted Iona to capture one of the world trees, and since Iona was also searching for one, their paths would surely cross during this mission. It'd be the perfect opportunity for Iona to size up his strength. Intrigued by the mission, Iona agreed and opened a portal to the human world. But when she tried to move her slave, she realized he was already dead. So she stepped off him and asked Ekina to clean up the mess. Meanwhile, at Yuri's house, she asked him what he wanted to eat, because today she'd cook lunch herself. But before he could answer, Alice entered the room, saying she had something important to discuss with him. Just as Alice finished speaking, Pina appeared, thinking Alice came to confess to the main guy. But that wasn't the case. Alice had used her clairvoyance to search for another world tree to help him. Everyone asked what she had found. Alice said she hadn't found the world tree by herself, but instead it was she who guided her. And the one guiding her was this very woman. Yuri dashed towards C, overjoyed to see her sister again, only to realize she passed right through her. C gently reminded them that this wasn't her true body, her real essence resided elsewhere, not truly present here. Yet, the shock wasn't over when they learned that this stunning figure was one of Yuri's sisters. Bina explained that Ji was the second eldest among them, still hard to believe that a World Tree spirit could come here alone. Despite her disbelief, she shyly raised her head to greet her sister-in-law. C was equally thrilled to finally meet her, confessing she needed help. Though she'd held on until now, she was under attack by enemies far stronger than she had imagined. Pressed against two mountains, C remained calm and promised to help with all his heart. He asked where her World Tree was, but she revealed the real danger wasn't her tree, it was their youngest sister, May. Hearing this, he assumed May's guardian was fiercely protecting her, but in truth May's protector had long since fallen. So C had taken up the mantle to shield their youngest sibling. The World Tree was invaluable, coveted by countless who'd stop at nothing to seize it. That's why C stood as the shield for May. Yet Bina couldn't grasp how C managed this. She believed tree spirits couldn't leave their trees. It was true that those she'd met before never left their trees, but C was one of the strongest tree spirits, able to act freely to some extent. Finally, Bina grasped the whole story. C told him she needed help as soon as possible, unsure how much longer she could hold out. Alice asked if the demon was truly too strong for C to defeat with her magic eyes. Actually, C could defeat it with those eyes, but the problem was that the demon would destroy May's tree in the process. She wasn't ready to unleash that power. Only now did he understand that the mask covering C's face was sealing her magical eyes. Because she couldn't handle the demon alone, he vowed he would come to May's rescue. He asked the girls if they were ready to join him, and naturally, they all wanted to save their sister, so he promised C he'd arrive soon. It's clear why all her sisters adored him so much, his boundless enthusiasm to help, especially when it came to the girls. She told him Alice already knew where May's World Tree was, making it easy to lead him there. Minutes later, he reached the forest where May's tree stood and planned to cross it as quickly as possible. Strangely, no monsters attacked him. He'd heard the forest was teeming with beasts, but perhaps they sensed their hopelessness against him, so maybe all fled the moment he arrived. Yet one foolish challenger dared defy him, Connet, one of the demon nobles. Knowing he had defeated two shadow fiends and her fan, she was confident her swarm of hornets could crush him. A bear monster appeared, searching for prey, but Connet refused to be disturbed. She sent some hornets to take down the bear, thinking that even someone as strong as him couldn't fend off so many enemies, so she unleashed her hornet swarm to chase him. But just as she thought victory was hers, he vanished, and suddenly, a sword pierced her from behind. It didn't take long for him to deliver the finishing blow. Unfortunately, this wasn't her true body. She had split into a swarm of hornets. Her power let her control all her minions no matter where she was. Her true form was a hornet hidden inside the massive swarm. She believed there was no way he could find her. Since he couldn't locate her within the swarm, he decided to blow the entire swarm to pieces. Ursula helped him lock down the position of each hornet. Once ready, he unleashed thousands of sparks, incinerating every single hornet. Witnessing his power, Connet gave up and stopped fighting the protagonist. She began sneaking back toward the gate to the demon realm. But just as she was about to step through, Iona appeared and challenged her, asking what she thought she was doing, running away. Terrified, Connet tried to, but Iona had no mercy for the weak. She ended Connet's life instantly for failing to meet her expectations. Exhausted by dealing with such feeble demons, Iona at least found her target thanks to Connet's failure. She introduced herself to him as the strongest among the demon nobility. Realizing this must be the demon who had caused so much trouble for Sister C, she knew he was on a whole different level than Connet. Iona sneered wickedly. Usually, humans were hunted by minions to keep her hands clean, but now that she met him, she planned to toy with him until torment consumed him. But moments later, he appeared behind her, unleashing his drain technique to weaken her. Then, with a familiar barrage of rapid punches, he overwhelmed her, sending Iona soaring into the sky before delivering a merciless combo that slammed her back to the ground. Returning to Earth, Iona was so bewildered by what had just happened she laughed like a madwoman. It had been ages since she'd felt pain like that, as all her opponents had been mere weaklings. Now, she thought, this hero might finally be an interesting adversary. Drawing her twin guns, Iona unleashed a barrage of wild shots at him. Empowered by her unique skill, her bullets never stopped until they hit their target. Confident, she believed this would be the end of him. Yet, he calmly deflected the bullets, which startled her since these bullets were supposed to be immune to all attacks, but now they targeted her instead. Iona scrambled to dodge, but was too slow and got hit. Realizing something was off because dodging such basic attacks should be easy, Iona grew suspicious. Fear crept in as she tried to put distance between herself and him. But seconds later, he reappeared behind her, and with a gentle motion, decapitated her. Though as a high-level demon, she could survive even without her head. Still, accepting that he truly defeated her was a bitter pill. He stepped toward her severed head, listening to the defeated's complaints, wondering why she grew weaker instead of stronger during the fight. Moved by a hint of pity, he explained it was because of his Dreyant's skill. After its first use, every punch transferred a weakening curse, sapping the opponent's strength with each blow. So now, Aona had less power than even a low-level demon. Aona spiraled into crisis, having always been the strongest among demon nobles. But after this brutal beating, she swore vengeance. Her pride shattered, her resolve burned brighter. This defeat wouldn't be her last word. He vowed to soon exact revenge on C for what she had done, and began opening a portal to the demon world to escape. Just as he was about to chase her, Ursula stopped him, reminding him their priority was to ensure C and May's safety. Agreeing, he let Aona go and asked Alice to lead him to May's world tree. Alice guided him to a gigantic cocoon woven with white threads, nestled deep in the forest. He guessed it was protecting May's world tree, but was puzzled why the demons hadn't destroyed it, since it was quite visible. Alice explained that the cocoon was hidden by spirit magic, invisible to ordinary eyes. The only reason he could see it was thanks to his demonic Eye of the Void. At that moment, he wondered how to get inside. Suddenly, the cocoon opened as C, May, and the others entered. This time it was truly C's real body, and when Yuri saw her sister, she leapt forward, embracing her tightly. Among the sisters, Pina was the closest to C. The two of them loved teasing Alice about her obvious crush on him. It was heartwarming to see C safe, but he immediately asked where little May was. C said May was still sleeping, so he went to check on her. The little girl looked adorable, so he decided not to wake her, but he accidentally stepped on a twig, making a noise that startled May awake. Seeing a strange man staring at her while she slept, May panicked, bursting into tears and snot. He was at a loss, not knowing how to comfort the crying May. Trying a silly face to cheer her up only made her cry harder. Just as things were getting worse, Yuri appeared just in time. The moment May saw Yuri, her tears stopped. She was overjoyed she hadn't seen her sister in so long. May was thrilled to see both Alice and Pina there too. May said she had planned to make flower crowns for everyone when she heard they were coming, but being a child, she fell asleep before finishing, so she only had a few flowers. Yuri gently reassured her it was okay, they could finish the crowns together later. May's smile blossomed instantly. He breathed a sigh of relief as May finally quieted down and thanked Yuri for saving the moment. Suddenly, May shouted at him, accusing him of being the scary one who tried to break the barrier, convinced it was him. Yuri quickly corrected her, explaining he was the one who chased the demon away, so he wasn't bad. Realizing her mistake, May whispered an apology. He apologized too for unintentionally frightening her. With the misunderstanding cleared, May snuggled into his lap. Seeing no reason to refuse, he sat down and let May climb onto his thighs. She then demanded a head pat before she would settle. He happily obliged. Then May whimpered, wanting to be lifted high. He happily complied, but she asked to go even higher. Forgetting his own immense strength, he accidentally launched them both soaring up into the clouds. When they finally landed safely back on the ground, everyone expected May to be terrified and scream. But Noshe was ecstatic about the sky-high ride. May declared him her #1 favourite for being so fun. She insisted on joining him and the others. He quietly rejoiced his goal was to reunite all of Yuri's sisters, but he still needed the adults' approval. He turned to ask C if it was okay. C said that if May wanted to come, it was fine, but she would have to stay behind to guard the place. He was surprised, expecting C to come with them, but she explained she had taken responsibility for protecting May's world tree and couldn't leave. He thought this wasn't about duty, but about what C truly wanted. Though she didn't say it, it was clear she longed to join Yuri and the others. He reassured C not to worry about guarding the place. He could set up an ultra-strong barrier to protect it, and even leave a clone behind in case anyone slipped through. His reasoning was solid, and his willingness to take responsibility swayed C to agree to go along. She snapped her fingers, and the spirit cores of both herself and May appeared. With solemn respect, she entrusted them to him, confident he wouldn't disappoint. Joy exploded as they reunited. So far, he had found 4 of Yuri's sisters, but 4 more were still lost somewhere. The road ahead was long. Confiding in Ursula, he revealed how he once drowned in guilt, but meeting Yuri and her beautiful sisters had ignited a fierce desire to protect their happiness. He had finally learned to accept himself and take pride in guarding their smiles. Ursula looked at him, involuntarily recalling his pitiful state when they first met. Months of hardship had forged him into a trustworthy man, moving her to tears. Seeing Ursula troubled, he asked what was wrong, but she waved it off, telling him to hand over the spirit cores of May and C so she could process them. After her work, Ursula announced he had gained powerful new abilities: the Void Demon Eye from May's World Tree core, and an upgraded Spirit Eye that could now analyze C's aura. She explained C's demon eye could erase anything within sight, as if it never existed an overwhelming power but one that came with terrible strain. She warned him to use it sparingly since even she didn't fully understand its side effects. He understood the dangers and promised to reserve it for dire emergencies. May's abilities were gentlish, could create trees. Though simple in description, the size of her creations was impressive and sure to be useful in battle. Lastly, Ursula explained that the aura analysis helped him fight more effectively by revealing the extraordinary physical strength of high-level demons. Best of all, his sword was now enhanced with an effect that cut through enemy auras and absorbed their power to boost his own strength. He was ecstatic hearing this. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, all high-ranking nobles were summoned. Seeing the threat he posed to their resurrection plans, they concluded it was time to eliminate him. As the new lord of the Scarlet Realm, Yuri and the group formally moved into the castle that once belonged to Negon. Their first task was a thorough cleanup. Yuri was eager to help, but Pina was lazy, trying to dodge the chore, calling it boring. But after a gentle reminder from Kurahem, Pina reluctantly joined the effort. Alice was also enthusiastic, wanting to prove her worth. In stark contrast, the second sister C was passed out drunk on the sofa, while May threw a tantrum, not wanting to clean. Jasper offered to help move their luggage later, so he wanted the group to sweep away all the dust first. He divided everyone into teams to tackle the mess efficiently. Pairing up with a guardian was the plan, but since Akahan wasn't around, En decided to team up with Alice. Everyone dove into their tasks. The first stop for En and Alice was the library. En apologized to Alice for Akahan's absence, fully aware of how much she missed her protector. Yet, he promised to do his best so that one day, all of them could reunite. Alice thanked En warmly. Hearing that, she suddenly realized this private moment might be the perfect chance to confess her feelings. As Alice summoned all her courage, En suddenly turned back and said, "I know you're in love." Honestly, he felt it too. But En was talking about Alice's love for books, and Alice caught only the first part, her heart soaring with joy, completely missing the rest. Excitement overwhelmed her, and in a burst of uncontrolled power, a book accidentally flew straight into En's face. Meanwhile, Kurahem had just finished cleaning the dining hall and went to check if Pina had tidied the kitchen. Upon entering, she saw everything sparkling clean. But Kurahem knew Pina too well. She was furious and tossed a hairpin at her. No illusion could fool Kurahem. She glared and ordered Pina to start cleaning again, immediately. Elsewhere, Yuri and Ursula were in charge of the bathhouse area. Yuri was eager to do a great job, running around energetically. Unfortunately, she slipped and fell. Ursula rushed to catch her, but Yuri managed to regain her balance before hitting the ground. Instead, Ursula ended up face-planting into a pillar. Worried, Yuri asked if she was okay. Ursula said she was fine, just a cracked skull, nothing serious. Ursula always cared deeply for Yuri, and Yuri appreciated that. But she also wanted to do things on her own. Right now, Yuri wasn't tired. She was savoring this feeling of relaxation. Bound for so long near her world tree, she hadn't had the chance to try new things. But now, she was free to explore new sides of herself all thanks to En. Meanwhile, C and May were cleaning an old, dusty storage room. The dust was terrible. With plenty of work to do, C started by opening the windows. At that moment, May discovered a tiny critter. Finding it cute, she asked C if she could keep it. But C was terrified. She screamed in panic. Van asked May to throw the creature out the window immediately. May was confused why she couldn't keep it as a pet, but seeing C's fear, she reluctantly complied. After that, May rummaged through the storage and found a beautiful dress in the corner. She insisted on trying it on. She also found another outfit she thought would suit C perfectly, but reconsidered because it was too skimpy. After finishing the bedroom cleanup, En returned to the main hall to check on everyone. The moment he arrived, he froze there was Yuri, dazzling in a stunning evening gown. After a few seconds of stunned silence, admiring Yuri's graceful figure, En finally asked why she was dressed like that. Yuri explained that everyone had decided to throw a party to welcome C and May's arrival, and also to thank En for everything he had done. Then she pulled En toward the grand banquet hall. There, En was overwhelmed seeing all the girls dressed in gorgeous gowns. He nearly had a heart attack, they all looked too beautiful. Bina urged En to change into party attire. They had even prepared a suit for him. At first he refused, but after some not-so-gentle persuasion from Ursula, he finally agreed. Everyone couldn't stop complimenting how handsome he looked in the suit. Especially, Alice looked so sharp that she couldn't meet his gaze directly. May proudly boasted she had picked out his outfit herself, claiming her taste was no joke. He thanked May for choosing such a cool outfit, and wished her and everyone else a great time at the welcoming party. Once everyone gathered, Yuri declared the party officially started, and dragged him onto the dance floor. He shyly admitted he didn't know how to dance. Alice felt a twinge of jealousy seeing Yuri so close to him, but Yuri invited her to join the fun too. Soon he invited everyone to dance along. No party is complete without music. Kurahem grabbed his flute and played a gentle melody. Everyone was having fun dancing, though it was